Happy Sunday morning, y'all. I'm over here rocking out, bro. I'm just chilling. Having a great time. It was a rough night last night. Shout out to the MVPs. We did miss on 2 out of our 3 locks on UFC 305. We did get it right. Drickus did beat the hell out of Israel Adesanya, eventually drowning him in the 4th round like I said he would. I actually made a 4th round prediction on submission. Ask one of the MVPs. We did it in a live stream, so that was a great thing. But for the night, it was pretty rough. Missed on 2 locks in a row. That's never good. And then you end up here. If you don't know who I am, I'm RicoKnows. Nice to see you guys. I'm here to talk to you guys about defense. And I'm going to make this very clear. Saturday just passed. So it is today. Today is what? The 18th of August. It is a Sunday. The football season's about to start. And full disclosure, Saturday that just passed was the last Saturday that I got to relax. Because from here on out, we have college football for probably the next 18 weeks or so. So it's going to be pretty daunting on me. I get no days off. I love my life. I'm not complaining at all. Shout out to the MVPs. But yeah, that's your last Saturday. That's your last Saturday without football. For those of you who've been watching preseason football, I wish that on no one. But I'm here to talk to you guys about college football. And I'm here to tell you guys that what you see on Twitter, on TV, is not college football in its entirety. They talk about the same 10 teams, same 15 teams. And this is why when I do my rankings, people gasp. They're appalled. They say things like, Rico doesn't know. They start freaking out. I literally did my preseason top 25 yesterday, and I have every Florida State fan in the world telling me I don't know what I'm talking about because I have Florida State ranked 20th. And I might say Florida State shouldn't be in the top 25. But they're convinced they're a top 10 team. And I'm looking at you like, Florida State just lost 10 NFL draft picks, 3 undrafted free agents, and then replaced them with a bunch of vagabonds. A bunch of dudes with no home. I don't know what we're doing. This isn't new to me, bro. I saw this last year with TCU. I got it right. I'm going to get it right this year with Florida State and Washington. You don't see Washington going around demanding that they belong in the top 10. They realize they lost NFL talent, superior players, and no one's talking crazy. But I'm here to talk to you guys about defense, so I'm not going to go on that tangent. We're going to deal with that when we get to it. So just a reminder, we do have a podcast schedule during the weeks of the college football season. So Monday, tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern, I will start my podcast, and we'll be talking about the ACC and Conference USA. Tuesdays is the Big Ten and the MAC. Wednesdays is the Big 12 and the American. Thursdays is the Sun Belt and the SEC. Fridays, short, to the point, Mountain West. Hopefully we get the hell out of there. Some independence. And then we've got high school football to watch on Fridays. Hopefully PFL fights. And all the while, I'm still going to be doing UFC. So if you want to watch the UFC fights with me on the Discord server, get my analysis, my breakdown, my predictions, my live bets. We had MVPs make money last night on live bets after losing our ass with the chart. We still figured it out. I still told them, hey, this is going to go the distance. This will be an over-rounds fight. This will be we still pulled it out to break even. It was a rough night. But let's talk about defense. Let's talk about defense. And yes, when I talk about the defense, I'm going to talk about 134 teams. What you see here is the ranking is here at 134. I'm on line 136. That's because there's like a header, a title, categories, and all this stuff. So I want to break it down for you guys. I hope you can see the chart on your phone or your computer device, whatever you're using. I hope it's legible to you. I made it as big as I possibly could to keep it on the screen, but I'll talk you through it. The first column is defensive tackles. Notably, nose tackle and defensive tackles, they're combined. So I don't care if you run a 3-man front or a 4-man front. Where it really matters, though, is some teams will only have 1 starting defensive tackle and then 2 defensive ends and then 4 linebackers. The vast majority of college football in their starting lineups, they're listing a nickel back. And when you list a nickel corner, I consider the nickel a safety. That's number 1. Because they're lined up over a slot receiver or over your Y receiver. If you didn't know, receivers are labeled X, Y, Z. Your Y is your tight end, anyone in the slot. And when I see a safety over them or a nickel corner, they're all going to get kind of picked together. But the reason I'm bringing this up is every single defense in America, with the exception of like 10 of them, only runs 2 linebackers. So you will see a middle linebacker and a will linebacker, or a Sam. Will meaning weak, Sam meaning strong, Sam meaning tight end side, weak meaning, the short side of the field, the non-tight end side. Will linebackers are typically more athletic. Sams are usually strong enough to set the edge, help with the run. Wills can drop into coverage and do things. There's all these stereotypes about Will, Mike, and Sam linebackers. If you didn't know all the different linebacker types, all the different receiver types, there's a lot going into this, okay? Yes, I played football my whole life. Yes, I've been a football coach. Yes, I'm the son of a coach. I know a lot about positional, responsibilities and how they all mesh well together. And what I want to tell you guys when I do my assessments, it's by position group. You see the columns. It's defensive tackles, nose tackles. Defensive ends, typically an edge, or a defensive end is what they call them today. Linebackers, typically only 2 guys, sometimes 3. Corners, this is the corner column. And then this is the free safety column, strong safety, nickel corner. This is the safety column. And you put all 5 of those position groups together, you get a total. Each group is weighted differently because of the amount of players, the amount of impact. Like, I think a strong pass rush off the edge is more valuable than your defensive tackles who are up front just plugging the gap. But when I give you a rating, I might value pressures and hurries. And when I see you being over 300 pounds and a gap plugger, if you will, I might value that more than a tackle. I might. And that's just kind of how that goes. When you see the categories, the max score you can get is a 10 in each category. That comes out to a different percentage based upon values and stuff, so don't even worry about that. But the point I'm trying to make is you can get a 10 in every column. And if you get a 10 everywhere, you would then have 100%. 10s are first-round draft picks in the NFL, essentially. First-round talent. I'd say first 2 rounds talent, first 3 rounds talent. All conference first team in a Power 4. It's usually a lock for an 8 or higher. Returning starters, corners over 6 foot that have played 2 years and started, that'll get you an 8 and above. Like, if you're a 4 or 5-star corner and you've never played, I'll go look at your metrics. I'll go watch your huddle tape. But you have no production in your life. You never started a game in college. I have a hard time going above 5 for you. I just do. Because the guys at 6 and 7 are returning all-conference guys who have been starting for multiple years. The guys at 7 and 8 are NFL caliber guys. So a 5 is like quality. A quality recruit or a quality, somebody with potential is a 5. And you'll see a lot of group of 5 teams with 5s and 6s. That's like some elite dudes at those schools. Let me make that clear. I'll talk about the team at the bottom here. Ball State. Brand new defensive coordinator. And so a lack of continuity is a problem. And I want to make another thing very clear before I go on. When I do these rankings, I don't take into account the coaching. I apply that after the ranking. So this helps me with my predictions, my capping for the college football games. When I'm telling these guys this position group is better than this position group, these guys are going to win on a Saturday over these guys. That's how this works, is I can make that prediction based upon talent, but I also know that certain coaches are better than others with the players given. Certain coaches are really good. I have this ranking here with Army and Air Force at 31 and 32. 131, 132, or 129th and 130th place. There is no way in the world Army and Air Force are going to be statistically ranked 129 and 130. No way in the world. Nope. They're run-dominant offenses. They're not going to give up a ton of yards because the other team won't have the ball. And Army and Air Force will be somewhere in the top 50 in total defense. And somebody will say, Rico, you got it wrong. No, I didn't get it wrong. This has nothing to do with stat predictions. This has nothing to do with win-loss totals. This is about evaluating talent in each position group. That's what this is about. And I do this really well. Once again, evaluating talent. That's it. how it applies with that coach, with that scheme versus another scheme, that's a whole nother episode that's done every single week in my matchups. Shout out to the MVPs. If you join the Patreon, join the YouTube, become an MVP, you will know the other data. You will understand how I apply this. But for now, we'll just talk about the rankings. So I got Ball State up. Here's their depth chart, their projected depth chart. It's not always accurate. One thing I'll say about Ball State is this guy, Keontae Newsome, really stuck out on tape. And that's because Keontae Newsome was not a starter last year. An injury occurred, and he became the starter. So number 9's everywhere. And he ended up leading them in tackles. So now he's back this year. And that's why you see that 6 there, is I look at a guy like Keontae Newsome, and I think he could start anywhere in the MAC. He can actually get to the ball and make it happen. And then you have Joey Stemler, who's a little more bulky, but he's my hidden gem. And if you didn't know, you can go to YouTube. I have a RicoKnows College Football Hidden Gems playlist. There are 60 videos in there right now. I'm going to try to add another 60 over the next 2 weeks. I'm going to be making a video on every single team in America. It's alphabetical. So far, I have a video on every team all the way up to, I'm going to say, if I'm going alphabetical, I'm probably at, where did I stop? Somewhere in here. Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Fresno State, Georgia Tech. I think I stopped somewhere around here because I still need Georgia, right? Yeah, so I'm somewhere in the F's and the G's, and I need to keep going. But they're all in here. If you want to learn about a player on every single team, I'm doing one hidden gem on every team. And there's guys you need to know about. My hidden gem on Ball State, though, was a linebacker in Joey Stemler here. Just an old school linebacker. Good to watch. Terrible huddle tape, but he plays much better now that he's in college. So, yeah, Ball State has a lot to work on talent-wise. I don't think they're very good. And that's unfortunate because I'm sure there's players on that team that think they're very good. But in comparison, you see I gave them a 1 in corners, a 1 in safeties. I just think it's some of the worst secondary play I've seen among the FBS teams. Next on the list is Kent State. Kent State losing a good defensive tackle to the transfer portal. Not even. I'm tripping. I was thinking West Virginia. No. Yeah, I'm thinking Kent State. Yeah, they lost a good defensive tackle in the transfer portal. They found a bunch of people in the transfer portal. None of them were starters, which is scary. Okay? Watching on tape, I'm not impressed with a whole lot they're doing. And they're just still in recovery mode from a coaching change 2 years ago. Right? When Sean Lewis left to go to Colorado, they had to hire Kenny Burns. And Kenny Burns, running backs coach, never been a head coach in his life. He's still trying to figure that out. So we'll see what happens, but I don't feel good about Kent State's defense. Kennesaw State's defense. Remember, I'm going to go through 10 and then I'll jump to the chat. So if you got your questions, get them in now, and I'll get to them when I can. Let them load up. I'll get to the chat here in a bit. Kennesaw State defense, when I looked at it, there are 2 guys that were all over the tape. Number 1, they had a safety who led them in tackles last year. You never want your safety to lead you in tackles. That's number 1. Probably not a good year. But he was very good, and he actually hit the transfer portal, and I'll talk about him when I get to Georgia Southern. And then they had another kid 2 years ago. His name was Chase Gamble, and he popped on tape as well. So I went back and looked at Chase. He's a corner, white corner, 6'2", and he looks special, and he's also at Georgia Southern. So I thought 2 of the better defensive players transferred to Georgia Southern. That I know they're waiting to see what Westmoreland can do, coming home, back home, things like that. But we'll see what happens with this team. I don't know much about Kennesaw State, and a reason for that is this is their first year in the FBS. Do I know the players? Yes. I followed Georgia high school football a lot. Like, I know Gabriel Binyard played at, a 1A school. It's killing me right now. The Indians. Oh, boy. I just forgot his high school. Well, he and his twin brother played there. Irwin. Memphis? Is it Memphis? Yay! RicoKnows. That's crazy. So, yeah, I know the players. I just, I don't necessarily know how good they're going to be. Defensively, ranking their players, this is how I feel they are on tape. Temple, they're never going to recover from losing a good linebacker 2 years ago, had another linebacker leave early, and they just look like they're going to struggle this year. Obviously, their offensive losses are huge. But looking defensively, the only position groups that were respectable were linebacker, and I want to talk about why I feel that way, although it's it's unproven, right? So Taekwon King is there at will linebacker. We know Taekwon King isn't great. He's 6'3", 220. He's a big, strong, healthy-looking linebacker, but there's just something wrong with him. 2 years ago, he transferred out of North Carolina A&T, and he was going to ECU. And I did a review on him and B.J. Davis, both HBCU linebackers transferring to ECU. And when I did my review, I said, B.J. Davis is great, and this dude doesn't look like a natural linebacker. And sure enough, by the end of the summer, Taekwon King was like fourth string and not starting at ECU. Wasn't built for it, didn't look the right part. So now he hits the transfer portal, and he's still going to another FBS school, still getting that opportunity. I don't think he's a natural linebacker. I think he should have went back to an HBCU. I think he's that caliber of player. And for those of you who don't understand what that means, it means you're not good enough to play in the FBS. Period. There's a reason no HBCU players have been drafted over the last 2 years now. They're just an echelon below what we're looking for. So Taekwon King gets his shot. And he's not quite there. And understand that he was an FCS All-American. Understand that he was an HBCU All-American. And he's still one of the better players on this defense. When I watch the film, I have him and the safeties at 4. That's wild. Absolutely wild. Okay? Up next is Army. Army's very difficult to assess. Number one, obviously they're going to have good coaching, and they're going to be fine at some point. Like, they're going to figure it out. But man, how do I explain this about Army? I think this isn't right. What are we doing? Where are we at? There's I'm looking. I was thinking Air Force. Army's under a different thing here. I apologize. Army and Air Force are suffering from the same thing. Air Force is the worst one. We'll get to it. I think Army's okay. I was looking it over. I was looking for a certain guy that I thought I saw on tape, but he's not here. I think Army's okay. Just boring, man. It's tough to watch him. I hope that Bryson Daly keeps these first downs going and gives his defense a rest, and they go out there and do it. But this will be an underwhelming team for me. They'll be frustrating. I understand. You guys think they're going to be great. Let me tell you, my hidden gem on Army is on offense. Kanye Udo. This guy is the best running back that Army's seen in a long time. He doesn't belong at Army. So this guy's a stud. Does follow me on TikTok now, and I believe Twitter. Shout out to him. Great team, great player, great guy. It's just going to be boring, man. And listen, I was in the Army over 21 years. I should cheer for Army. Their games are so hard to watch. And I watch all of them over and over and over, and they're just not there for me. Okay, now I want to get to Air Force. Something I wanted to talk about Air Force. Air Force returns no production. So when you return no production, I have to go watch the tape and make assessments. So I have to go watch huddle tape because nobody's ever played. All these guys are prep school guys, or they came out of the prep. They've been on the bench. They're not really starters. How do I figure out who's good at Air Force? And then I turn on the tape, and the first guy I saw was Jack Curtis. His grandfather used to be an NFL running back for the Packers. Yeah, he's great. Grandfathers, the genes are there. Then I turn on the tape on Jack Curtis, and I'm like, oh, that's one of those dudes at the service academies that thank God the service academy got him because he could play anywhere. I thought Jack Curtis looked great. And I'd imagine there's going to be other players on this defense to step up throughout the year that are going to play great. But as of right now, when I rank them and assess them, they're right here. It'll change from week to week, but right now this is where it's at. I have Air Force very low. And it pains me, but it's the reality of the situation. All right. Akron's down here. Akron lost one of their best linebackers to the transfer portal. He's a linebacker, strong safety. He left for Virginia. So they're left with what they have here. Not bad players. Nobody really pops on tape for me. I can't remember who I made the hidden gem. Who was it? I know. Oh, it's probably Bennett Adler. It was Adler. Adler's been around for a while. He was actually at Media Week for the MAC, and he's a well-spoken dude. I guess he's a team leader. More power to him. I like Adler. He's just an old-school, hard-working dude. Yeah, I could see him being like a defensive coach someday. Shout out to Fish at linebacker. Fish is a guy, I believe he was JUCO, kind of slept on. Maybe he didn't have grades or he was undersized, one of the two. And he's coming through with flying colors. I like Fish. You'll see him on tackles. I was actually going to make a video about him sometime this offseason, and I never got around to it, and that's on me. Nevada. Oof. Nevada. They have linebackers. Let's go to Nevada. We'll go to the chat here. Trying to go as fast as possible and just skim over teams. Because, hey, listen, here's the truth, guys. I'm going to deep dive on these teams with the MVPs on a Saturday. I'm going to probably speak about these teams in depth during the week on their weekly podcast when we do matchups and we talk about them. So I apologize if I'm keeping it very wave top right now. If you're like a fan of a particular team and you're a fanatic about all the players on that team, like I looked at every single player, wrote most of them on Twitter, got as much film as I could on most players. I do a ton of research. I leave no stone unturned. And so when I'm in here talking, I might keep it surface level, but I do know your team. I do know the players. I have searched. I have watched. So let's go to Nevada. Nevada's got some linebackers. They're decent. Drew Watts here. Could have sworn. Did they change numbers? They might have changed numbers for this upcoming season. I don't know if they're going to wear the same jersey numbers. But Drew Watts popped on tape. But other than that, Nevada's got a ton of work to do. They got a decent offensive line. I want you guys to know Nevada's got a decent offensive line. They're not bad. Terrible quarterback play. And check out Savion Red there, the transfer from Texas. Savion Red just transferred out of Tech. They just lost a bunch of dudes on the depth chart. Sean Dollars, Oregon transfer. Garwu, Boston College transfer. I heard he's injured again. Hayes, California transfer, local kid. That's a kickoff returner right there. Local kid decided to go to Cal for 1 year, coming back home. He's from Reno. Yeah, pretty interesting running back room at Nevada. It's not defense, though. We're here to talk about defense. Nothing interesting about their defense. New Mexico. I don't know how they're ever going to recover from losing Halsey. So 2 years ago, I was watching New Mexico's defense, and they had a Dari Halsey, this safety, who I think is an NFL safety. And I was watching tape on New Mexico, and I see this safety everywhere, and I'm going, who the hell's this guy? This guy don't belong in New Mexico. He's so amazing. He's from Houston, and he ended up transferring to Houston. And he just led Houston in tackles. I made a video about him, and as a matter of fact, I don't want to pull it up now because I don't want to kill too much time, but I have my rankings from last year in the transfer portal. It might be on this tab right here. It might be on here. Let me see something. 20, let's go. I'm going to keep going back. Transfer portal 2024. No, dang it. Top transfer portal, guys. It might not be in this. I'm going to keep looking just real quick. It's not in here. It's on another. I have so many tabs and so many different things I've done on this Outlook. I'm sorry, Excel. That sometimes I forget where things are located. I have it somewhere. But the point I wanted to make was New Mexico had a star player at one point, and he's gone. So it's the reality of the situation. They don't have him anymore, and they're struggling with what they do have. It's still like their safeties. They're still pretty decent, but the rest of the team just leaves a lot to be desired. Good luck to them. Good luck. I think they're gonna have a long season. I know they're doing their best. Next defense is Central Michigan, and this is bad for Central Michigan. When I start assessing you, and I don't think very highly of you in the MAC, there's not a lot of great teams in the MAC. You should be able to be competitive. You're a directional school, but for whatever reason, when I look at this defense, it just didn't move me like that. You see it over here. I gave a 5 to the linebackers, and nobody else really popped. And these are decent linebackers. I want to say one thing. Fernando Sanchez in high school was a hidden gem to me. I watched him play in high school, and I thought, there's some people are missing on this guy. He played at Grayson. He played with Phil Maffa. He played with a number of Division I players. I mean, everybody. And he was on the defense. He was a middle linebacker. I thought he was great. So it's just one of those things. Shout out to Fernando Sanchez, finally in the starting lineup. I hope he plays amazing this year. I believe in that kid. Big guy. Great linebacker. I'm going to be watching for him. But this is going to be one of the worst teams in the MAC, at least defensively. The talent of their defense is not very good. Speaking of falling from high places, how about Oregon State? Oregon State, way in the hell down here. This is what happens when you lose your entire coaching staff. Yes, you kept your defensive coordinator. You lose your conference and your staff. You lose your leading tacklers. You lose all kinds of guys. Some of the people I do like on Oregon State, though, I like their corners, and they lost one of them to Tennessee. It's a whole nother issue there, and he's going to be a starter. Jermon just left. I like Kobe Singleton. I like Jaden Robinson. They look good on tape. And I really like this dude, right? I can't say names, bro. Olawasie Amato Show. I've been on this dude for 2 years now. He still looks great on tape. Number 33. He used to be, I think, number 44, but he's number 33. He's one of those guys who slipped through the cracks due to COVID. Straight up, due to COVID, slipped through the cracks because he was great in high school. His tape was amazing, but coaches couldn't go travel anywhere. So he was in Houston. Coming out of Houston, he ends up going to Wyoming. Balls out at Wyoming, then transfers over here with Jonathan Smith and these boys. I like him, bro. I like that kid a lot. That's a good player. Obviously, they lost a ton of good players. Defensive tackles don't move me like that. I just want to talk about it. I think this kid's soft. Jacob Schuster, transfer from Minnesota. When I watch him on tape, I don't see anything. No, I don't see it, man. Big guys, big bodies. But I just don't see them resetting the line of scrimmage, collapsing pockets, hurries. And I don't see anything. I don't see anything special about these guys. I think Oregon State's taking a huge step back this year. I really don't like it. New Mexico State. Have we done enough teams? I'm going to get to the chat here in a little bit. New Mexico State just won 10 games and then lost everybody in the transfer portal. Lost everybody in the transfer portal. When you look at New Mexico State, defensive tackles are okay. They're not bad. If you go look at the ratings, where are they at? I gave them a 3. They're not bad. But I gave their secondary 2 5s, and I like their edge rushers. They were all right. 2 5s on the secondary, and a lot of this has to do with I believe in a guy like Crosby. I really do. I didn't know DeMarcus Crosby was coming over to New Mexico State. I could have sworn I had him transferring somewhere else. Some of these guys aren't here, though. One of these guys isn't here. I think they got this wrong. I could be tripping. One of these guys didn't transfer here. Backed out or went somewhere else. Was it Nick Sessions? Huh. Something's wrong. Doesn't matter. New Mexico State's going to fall back. They're not going to be good. A lot of guys left the team. They do have a good running back room. They do have a decent running back room. Shout out to them. Middle Tennessee, losing Sam Brumford hurts. They lost their middle linebacker to Virginia Tech. MTSU, that's a problem. He was the leader of the defense. The year before, they lost the nation's leading interception guy to the transfer portal. He went to UCF and didn't play much. That's a whole nother thing there. But, yeah, watching these guys, some of these players do pop on tape. They do look okay. And, once again, linebackers give them a 5. Everybody else is just kind of average and underwhelming. And this is typical for Conference USA teams. When I watch the tape, I just kind of see athletes out there. They don't really, move me. I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. And that's kind of how you get in a lull sometimes when you're looking at some of these group of 5 guys. Before I'll get to San Diego State, they're in recovery mode. They lost a ton of players to the transfer portal with the coaching departure. Sean Lewis showed up, did his best to hold them together. But the reality is, they even have an injury to Christian here. But they got Marquez Coop. They'll be straight on the running back side of the room. But defensively, Chambliss coming over, a lot of potential. Everybody's talking about him, excited about him. But I turned on the tape. I didn't see anything that made me go crazy. Here's what I'll say. This guy, Cody Moon, should be starting. Cody Moon should be starting for San Diego State. I thought he was great. He looks like a guy who gets to the football. I'll be surprised if Cody Moon doesn't have more tackles than these guys they have starting over him. I'd be surprised. I don't know if our lads has inside information, if somebody talked about it in the spring or what. But when I watch tape, Cody Moon's the guy that should be on the field. Yep. I'm not a coach, but I know more than these dudes. I'm not a coach, but these guys won't be coaches long anyways. Hey, if you don't listen to me, you won't be coaching very long. We know this. Yeah, you were once a coach. Not anymore, buddy. What'd you do wrong? You didn't start the right guys. You assessed your talent incorrectly. It happens all the time. I talk about it all the time. Going to La Tech, but before I do, I'm going to jump to the chat. Thanks for being here, guys. Shout out to TikTok if you're watching this right now. Just move over to YouTube, drop your comments in the chat, and I will respond. I promise. We always get to the chat. Armin was the first guy in the house. Armin beat David in here. Hey, so I know some guys are trying to beat the chat, but Armin beat all you guys. Armin says, what's good, Rico? Been waiting for this. Let's go. Shout out to you, Armin. I appreciate all the support in the channel, and thank you for being an MVP. Hey, Rico, good morning. Good morning, Dave. You live to see another day, bro. Cope Digital says, found out Rico has a twin brother. How cool. Oh, yikes. Cannot wait for 11 a.m. Saturday. Shout out to Evan Kramer. He can't wait for 11 a.m. Saturday. Football is starting. I want to say the first game is at noon. Is it at 11, Ireland? The first game is Florida State, Georgia Tech. MVPs, if you want to know. Or all of you out there, if you want to know how I feel about that game, I'll be breaking it down tomorrow. And I'll be giving my picks and my video on it to the MVPs. You know who you are. Florida State, Notre Dame, and Tennessee fans are at your neck. Cope Digital, they are delusional, and they'll be okay. What they don't know, Cope Digital, is I have predicted Notre Dame to win at least 10 games. I don't think very highly of the talent on their team, but they're still going to win games. That doesn't mean they should be ranked any higher in my rankings, because my rankings assess talent. What the outcome of games is totally different. That's what they don't understand. Notre Dame can say they're a top 10 team because of all their wins. But I promise you, when they play any team I have ranked above them, they will lose. They just don't play those teams. But if they play the teams ranked above them, they will lose. That's the difference. So they can talk about their rankings and their overall record. Listen, if a preseason top 25 was supposed to predict overall records, then you would see group of 5 teams in there. That is not what a preseason top 25 is for. It's for me to tell you who the top 25 teams are. Now, what happens, and the fact that they got to play each other and one's going to win or lose, it's not my problem. I'm just telling you who the best 25 talented teams are. That's the reality of the situation, and they're mad. Notre Dame will win games, but it will be against Navy. It will be against Stanford. It will not be against the top 25 that are ahead of them. What about the Browns? I don't know anything about the Browns, bro. Drickus Duplessis, thank you, Rico. Shout out to you, Jordan Carlin. Gave that pick out for free. Congratulations for those of you who bet on it. What about the Packers defense? Steven, please do not come in here talking NFL. You will be blocked. We do not allow trolls on a live stream. Thank you. Not all Notre Dames are at his neck. Some of us are realists. Shout out to Nick. Nick is a Notre Dame guy. Can't read, write, Kent State. Hey, that's what it is. Okay. Shout out to you. Stop watching Rico. He does not watch film efficiently. Please watch other channels. Unity, thank you for your input. You won't be here anymore. That is absurd, but that's okay. We don't care for stuff like that. I watch more film than anybody on the planet Earth. The fact that you guys think somebody else on your favorite team or somebody who knows your favorite team watches it more than me is absurd. You're just looking for a fan page. Please go to those pages that cover one team. They're fan pages, dude. I see them all the time. Hey, Tennessee Vols 101, Colorado Buffaloes 101. I go to those channels, bro. They're gross. They just sit there in a vacuum and they just talk about themselves all day long and don't have a clue what they're up against. I talk about 134 teams. Change your name. Exactly. You're goofy. Comparing FSU to TCU is ridiculous. Yeah, I know. One team made it to the national title game. Another one didn't. That's the reality of the situation. So I don't think FSU won double-digit win season in 20 years or something like that, 2 of them in the last 15 years. Like, I don't think they're comparable. I think FSU is going to struggle as a program. They're terrible at assessing talent. I've watched 3 quarterbacks hit the transfer portal now from FSU, high school recruits. They didn't know how to recruit quarterbacks. They don't know how to evaluate talent or develop it, I should say. They know how to find it, but they're not developing the damn thing. And that's the problem, is you have to develop those players. So you just keep firing away, keep getting mad. But all 3 quarterbacks who hit the transfer portal were recruited out of high school by your coaching staff. And they're not any good. They're not at other Power 4 schools. So when I see Georgia quarterbacks transfer and become starters at other schools versus Florida State quarterbacks who transfer and go to Nevada, San Diego State, and ULM, like that's what I'm talking about. You guys just out of touch with reality. When I see backups from Miami starting at Florida State, that's exactly what's happening in your secondary right now. Your wide receiver room, backups who couldn't play at Alabama are your wide receivers. It's just, last year was phenomenal. Last year was 10 draft picks coming together. That's very normal for teams who reach the pinnacle, and then they fall off. And I believe Florida State ramped up, reached their pinnacle, and now they fall off. And the reason for that is just attrition of talent and not developing your talent. It's the reality of the situation. Only the greats develop the talent. Only the greats survive losing a coordinator. That's what makes them great. And I'm talking about head coaches. I don't look at Florida State to be in that particular situation at all. Florida State won over 10 games for the first time in however long since they won the national title. And that's it. And I believed in Florida State last year. I was the only one screaming Florida State's going to be undefeated. I was the only one screaming Florida State's a top 10 team before the season. When I saw the way they played Oklahoma in the bowl game, I said that's what they look like. I have videos of this. And now this year, I'm a realist, and I've done my assessment of the talent. And you guys are in denial. You guys are like, oh no, we're still great. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Where do you live? Where do you come up with this stuff? Look at the talent on the team. Look at the players. Look at the players, bro. Look at your receiver room. You have no NFL receivers. You just lost 2 of them. You have none. Look at both your starting running backs. They're backups. I think your third-string running back's a backup from Indiana. Like, you just got 3 backups in a running back room. You don't get to add C plus C plus C equals C, bro. It doesn't equal A. Mid. Oh, we got an elite team. You got mid everywhere. You got a dude at quarterback losing his job to a freshman. Tell me you have a great quarterback. And then I'll just show you Clemson, who doesn't have a great quarterback, but has a quarterback better than yours. We know this because they used to be on the same team. Like, we can do this at every position group. You don't study other teams. You study your team and brainwash yourself and convince yourself your team is great, and you're wrong. You're as wrong as Kentucky fans were last year. You're as wrong as Florida fans were last year. Trust me, I have all the comments of every Florida fan last year predicting they're going to win 9 games. Just delusional. Florida State. Number 20 in my preseason poll, and I'm being generous. Rico, would you agree that defense wins championships? A lot of people think the game has changed and offense wins. I would agree that in certain moments, your defense needs to come through and make a play. They call those championship moments, and they say defense wins championships. You're not getting there without an offense. If defense wins championships, Iowa would be the most dominant team out there. You need an offense. You need a good, competent offense that will allow your defense to be great. You can have an amazing defense. It's a total team concept here. You're going to be out of breath, bro. Your offense sucks. You're back on the field. What is it? 3 and out? Punt? 3 incompletions? You're back on the field? You're exhausted, bro. Ask USC. Yeah. Defense wins championships, but you need an offense. I think you need a whole team. I think you win championships in the offseason. I think you win championships in recruiting, transfer portal, development, lifting weights, scheme, continuity, hiring the right coaches. I think you win in the offseason. Saturday's just a byproduct of it. RicoKnows, what up? RTR, shout out Lewis Henson, Roll Tide Roll. Shout out to you, bro. RicoKnows the best. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. What's for breakfast? I had a spicy sausage and eggs and burger buns, sesame seed burger buns, because I'm rich, so I eat sesame seed buns. It was great. It's a little late on the breakfast. I slept in. Rico really do be known. Thank you so much. Notre Dame will never be a great quarterback because they keep bringing in meh quarterbacks in the portal. So I don't agree. I think they brought in as best quarterback as they can get or afford or find. They do need to identify one out of high school, maybe develop him, get a 5-star that way. But they're doing the best they can. Quarterback's not the issue. I think they have substandard wide receivers. I don't necessarily know if they have an elite level coaching staff, but, they're winning games. They're winning games. The reality is this, and I don't mean to be rude, and I just want to keep it I'll keep it 100 with you. We'll never know how good Notre Dame recruits are until recruiting websites start telling the truth. Like they elevate a Notre Dame recruit to 4 stars when they're not really 4 stars. They'll just say that's a 4 or 5-star player, that's a top recruiting class, and it's not the case. It's just a bunch of kids who decided to go to Notre Dame, and then the recruiting websites just made them all certain stars. When they got the offer from Notre Dame, they raised their stars up. So it looks like Notre Dame gets a competent recruiting class. In reality, they're just a bunch of 3 stars. It's the reality. But Notre Dame can do things wrong as well, right? They have guys in their secondary that are NFL caliber, and they're still not playing. Like I get told that's an NFL prospect all the time at Notre Dame. And Notre Dame and LSU might be the 2 programs with so many NFL prospects that you watch them and you're like, oh yeah, that's an NFL guy. That's an NFL guy. But they're not winning games. They're not winning games. Not the ones that really matter. They're beat up. It's easy to win the games you're supposed to. Look, I'm going to tell you what makes you a great poker player. It's easy to win, and if you play no-limit poker, if you play Hold'em, if you play limited, if you play any form of poker, and you play in poker tournaments, I play in a lot of poker tournaments, and you can ask my pops, he's in here. You can ask anybody who's been in a poker tournament with me. I make it to the final table in poker tournaments all the time. No cap. I remember making videos about it just last year. I entered a $1,000 tournament. That's a big deal for me. I don't pay a lot. I don't gamble like that. $1,000 buy-in, I'm in there, final table. Every time. I did another one when I was in Vegas not too long ago. Literally December. What makes you a great poker player is the amount of hands you win when you weren't supposed to win. So now some people might equate that to bluffing. But it's really reading the room. It's manipulation of chip stacks. It's manipulation of betting. It's timing. It might even be acting. But the amount of hands you win when you weren't supposed to win. And then when you have the nuts, do you maximize your profits? When you have the winning hand, do you maximize your profits? And I'm bringing this up because in the game of college football, so many people think because you're winning games, you're a better team. No, you're a more talented team. But let me know when you have the less talented team and you win the game. That's what makes you great as a coach. What games do you win that you weren't supposed to win, that nobody counted you in, that you schemed your way to victory, not talent? Remember, good coaching is it's great. But in college football, coaching is overrated. Talent is everything. The talent gap is so huge. No matter how good of a coach you are, you can't bridge that gap. Certain teams are so talented, you're going to lose every time. You're going to lose every time. Ask James Franklin. Great coach. You can't bridge the gap of talent at the collegiate level. You can do it in the NFL. Everybody's equivalently talented, and that's why any given Sunday somebody can win. But when you have great coaches, what makes the coaches great is the ones who can bridge that gap on a given Saturday, in a moment. The K-States that can go with a 3-star and win the Big 12. The Utahs that can go and beat USC with 3-star kids. It's those teams, and you know those coaches, man. You know them. Traylor at UTSA, Willie Fritz at Tulane, now Houston. Like, there's coaches that just bridge that gap, just ever so slightly. That's what you're looking for. That's what makes you great. How many hands do you win when you weren't supposed to? And there's so many coaches, and I think Notre Dame suffers from a coaching staff that has more talent than 80% of their opposition. So they win those games. And then you think they have a good program. But they're not winning the games that are challenging them, the games that are marginally close to them. I was really impressed. Did they beat Duke last year? Or was it the inverse? Duke's ability to bridge that gap was tremendous last year. Remember, they beat Clemson in week 1. Do you think Duke was more talented than Clemson? They're not. Better coach. It's just something to think about, guys. Just keeping it real. Are you doing every team today? I am doing every team today. Yep. Can't wait. Colorado shuts you up this year. Then we will see what you know. I don't even understand what that means. Like Colorado is how are they gonna shut me up? They don't play me, bro. They got a whole lot of other people they got to play. They ain't worried about me. I'm right. I'm right about Colorado. I was right about Colorado last year. I'm right about them this year. I'm right every year about every team because my assessment is right. Even when I'm wrong, I'm right. Last night, we missed on a fight. But if you watched it, my assessment was right. I just can't help what the coaches do. I just can't help what the refs do. Can't help what the fighters do. My assessment's right. I know what I'm saying. I just evaluate talent independently of what team they're on. Remember, when I evaluate players, I do not care what jerseys they're wearing. All of you guys care what color jersey they're wearing. You guys are fans of colors, fabric, thread. Do not care what color they're wearing. They can transfer teams, and I still think that player is of that caliber. Understand, I follow these players throughout their whole careers. When I assess a player, if they transfer teams, they're the same talented player. They might get more development. They might have a better quarterback. They might get more of this, more of that, more of that. But it's the same. If we had tryouts tomorrow, and I had all these defensive players out there with no shirts on, so all right, give me all the defensive tackles, and I have them all do their drills and do their tryouts and watch them play. I know who the guys are that I would take, and I know who's not in my starting lineup. And I just do it like that. All right, here's all the 10s, here's all the 9s, here's all the 8s. And then I apply it to the teams. And then I do a custom sort afterwards. I have no idea where these teams rank when I'm done. No idea. I'm looking at this chart for the first time with you right now. I have no idea what rank they're in, what order they're in. I literally don't. I hit this custom sort up here. I don't even know where it is. Is it under analyze data? I have to expand this. I did a custom sort and I put it in order by percentage. I'm learning right now as you are, because usually it's alphabetical, and that's what this is right here. This next column over here, 2024. This was some other shit going on. The first time I've ever sorted this way. Don't even know it. News to me, bro. That's how you stay impartial. So you stay accurate with your information. You're not impartial. You're not accurate. You're waiting to see Colorado shut me up. I don't know when that's going to happen. I don't know how that's going to happen. Last second win versus Duke. Thank you so much for Notre Dame. James Franklin might be a great coach, but he will be terrible until he gets rid of Drew Aller. No coach in the world can bridge the gap of Drew Aller. That's what I'm saying. Colorado winless in November. Mark it down. Oh, fucking write it down, bro. Let me get back to the list here. Thanks for talking, guys. Get your comments in the chat. I will get back to you. I'm on La Tech, I believe. I'm on La Tech here. They're ranked number 120th in the country on defense for me. Not impressed with anything La Tech does. Speaking of coach who does less with more, Sonny Cumbie needs to be fired. Does have good safeties, though. DeMarcus Griffin-Taylor, Michael Richard, and Blake Thompson, when I looked at them on tape, better than everybody else on the team. Shout out to them. Shout out to them on defense. Here we get to Marshall. Well, Marshall's got some of the worst quarterback play in America, by the way. just so you know. Braylon Braxton's the starter. Like I said, Braylon Braxton is the starter. I can't be talking about this. I'm not even showing you guys. Braylon Braxton is the starter for Marshall, apparently. Congratulations. Now, there's some players on this Marshall defense that I know their names, like Ibrahim, right? Legs here. Like, I know their names. But when I go watch the tape, Josh Moten in the starting lineup, I hope he keeps his nose clean, bro. Verified character concerns. Transfer coming over from A&M. I hope he keeps his nose clean and does things right. That way he transferred 2 years ago. But looking at the tape, safeties are their best talent. J.J. Roberts, Josh Moten, and McGahee here. They stick out. I like the team for what it is, but it looks like a down year for Marshall in comparison to previous years. I think it's going to be a down year for Marshall. And I know some people don't want to hear that, but it's the truth. It's how I feel. It's how I feel. Tulsa losing some players. Obviously losing their star linebacker to Oklahoma State last year didn't help. Losing a leader in the defense in Kendarian Ray doesn't help. A 6'4" safety who was everywhere. But when you look at Tulsa on tape, I have it here, a 6 on the pass rush. Remember, they lost the Simon brothers to UConn. They lost a number of players in the transfer portal, but this pass rush, Owen Ostrowski is the real deal. If you guys don't know Owen Ostrowski, he's moving to number 55. His father had number 55 retired back in 2013. So he's wearing his dad's old number. This is a kid born and raised wanting to go to Tulsa. It's just alumni. It's legacy. He's way better than Tulsa. Like, I think he doesn't belong there. Like, that's how good he is to me. Gavin Potter, a Kansas transfer. Surprised to see him backing up people, but it's a very senior lad in linebacker room. Just the pass rush looks good. I watched the tape, and remember, I go alphabetical, so I watched these guys pretty recently, and I was really impressed with the pass rush. So much so, I think I went to Twitter to talk about it. So, really impressed there. Buffalo, looked at them early in the season, and shout out to Buffalo. They're getting Sean Dolock back. He hit the transfer portal. He left, went to Utah State for a semester. Now he's back. Sean Dolock's one of the nation's leading tacklers in solo tackles 2 years ago. Last year, Anderson came in from Brantley, I believe, and balled out. Cool. But that dude right there, Sean Dolock, he's just a good old linebacker. Just a good old school linebacker. He's not bad. So when you see Buffalo, I rank him pretty high. I like him. As far as safeties go, they lost Devin. He left to Syracuse. It's looking like a mistake, by the way. But when I look at this defense and you turn on the tape, there's a number 10 for Buffalo. And his name is Marcus Fuqua. Bro's a pro. He will be on my NFL draft hidden gems playlist rankings. Marquis Fuqua, number 10, is a professional player. He's a beast. Number 10. Stud. Shout out to Buffalo. I don't think Buffalo's going to be very good. I don't like their offense. But defensively, I mean, they can't complain. They're comparable to a lot of MAC schools, which is where you want to be. You play in the MAC. You want to be just like them. Eastern Michigan, looking at their defense, I have their corners ranked really high. And it's Daquan White probably won't stay at Eastern Michigan his whole career. Daquan White will transfer to a Power 4 school. That's how good he is. So I think his tape is special. Daquan White, Joshua Scott. So this is how you know. Like, I look at Eastern Michigan, I immediately see a 7. I like their safeties at 5. But you haven't seen a 7 in any position group down here. So what you have to understand is Eastern Michigan corners are going to be locking down receivers. So when you're trying to bet prop bets, and you're trying to go like, oh, Rico, is this guy going to get his over yards or whatever? If there's a receiver trying to beat these corners, fat chance. ECU corners are great. Like, straight up, Tony the Tiger, great. And shout out to ECU's offense. I know I didn't give it a lot of love. But just listen, man. This Dion Brown, nice with it. Cole Snyder coming in from Buffalo, competent. They got pieces, man. They're rebuilding the offensive line, but they got pieces. Their defense, though, the corners are elite. Shout out to ECU. I liked watching your corners on tape. All right. Going to Hawaii next. Hawaii's offense is going to lead them. By the way, in the last 48 hours, Hawaii has reinstated Stephen McBride at wide receiver. He was arrested, and he's their leading receiver. There's just no way. They're returning all their top receivers. They're going to be throwing the rock everywhere in the Mountain West. But defensively, their defensive line is not good. You see how I gave it a 3 on both? Not good defensive line. Could be much better. Not where it needs to be. Cam Stone, transfer from Wyoming last year, 2 years ago. Cam Stone is a very good corner. I like what I see from him on tape. And then the safeties are pretty damn good. Just a bunch of Troy Polamalu lookalikes. No, I'm just saying they look pretty good. Shout out to Hawaii. But Cam Stone, pretty good player, man. And who wouldn't transfer to Hawaii to go play for Timmy Chang? I know they say the facilities aren't good, but, bro, you live in Hawaii. Come on, man. I'm transferring to Hawaii if I get a chance. Shout out to my girl. We could go live in Hawaii. We should look into it, sweetie. FAU. FAU's getting a lot of hand-me-downs from the Power 4 schools, if you will. But when I went and looked at them, Dunham. I think this is the Indiana transfer. I'm going to double check. He's the Indiana kid. Yeah. They got certain players like that you just look at them and go, hey, man, what are they doing at FAU? It's a little weird, but more power to them. They're Florida kids. You want to go out there and do it. Desmond Tisdale is a transfer from Auburn 2 years ago. Yep, I remember. So it's just, they go and it looks like they're getting the hand-me-downs from Power 4 schools, and that's a recipe for trying to be good, but I don't like it. I like Jackson Ambush. I like Tisdale. They're good players, but I don't necessarily know if that's a recipe for success. Francher's good. They tell me Fancher was in a quarterback battle. I don't know what that was about. I don't know why it got announced. He won the starting job. I'm like, no shit. He's the starter, bro. He's the kid from Marshall who's actually really good. E.J. Horton's a speedster. Their wide receiver room's been taking a ton of hits lately because all the best wide receivers left. Starting with Jamal Edrin, right? And then others, star players going to Colorado, things like that. So it's just they're going to be in recovery mode. I don't know how good FAU is going to be. Defensively, once again, defensive line left a lot to be desired when I looked at them. And this is crazy because, look at FAU's got 3-3, right? Southern Miss is right above them with a 5-5. Southern Miss, front four. Southern Miss defensive line, front four, big, bro. And it's noticeable. And I'm not out here giving out ratings to Southern Miss for free. Southern Miss, front four. And they're kind of senior Latin. Right? Senior. I shouldn't say kind of. They're very senior Latin. Trey Pinckney coming over from Coastal Carolina. They look the part up front. I'm turning on the tape. I'm going, whoa. Now, how many games are they going to win and all this? I don't know. But if you think somebody's going to run all over them like they did last year, I don't know. I might be hesitant because right now it looks like they have a really good defensive front. Big body boys. Big, grown. I mean, these guys have been lifting weights for 5 years. 5 years, 300-pounders. I like Southern Miss defensive line. Jacksonville State comes up next, and it sucks, man. It's such a shame Jacksonville State got robbed by the transfer portal because they had some amazing players. Obviously, Jacksonville State last year had the number one pass rusher in Conference USA in Hardy, Chris Hardy, number 91. He hit the transfer portal. He's now at Ole Miss. And you're left with some other guys. They also lost another defensive tackle. So you're left with some of these guys. And I like them. I still like the team because it's a good coach team or whatever. But when I look at the talent, there's a drop-off here. I see Tyler Bride here. I didn't know he was here. Tyler Bride, maybe I did know. Let me check the rankings. I gave him a 5. So let's talk about it. Antonio Carter, for example. This is a transfer from Notre Dame. Everybody talked about it when he left Rhode Island to go to Notre Dame. It was on every recruiting website in the world. Every Twitter account, everybody bragged about this move. Oh my God, Notre Dame signed Antonio Carter II. And they all talked about it like they got a fucking FCS All-American. And then he never really played. And that's what I'm talking about. When a Notre Dame gets a player, they advertise him as a 4- or 5-star kid and he's going to be all this greatness and whatever. And then it doesn't quite happen. And then he jumps in the transfer portal and he goes to Jacksonville State, and he's the backup at Jacksonville State, and nobody's talking about it. There's no fanfare. Go do a search for Antonio Carter, Notre Dame, on Twitter, on the internet. You're going to find everybody bragging about it. And then try to find him when they said he was going to Jacksonville State. Nothing. Crickets. Good player. Tyler Bride used to play at Georgia Southern, transferred to Minnesota last year. Now he's back. He's a good group of 5 player. Not a power 4 guy, but he's a good group of 5 player. I think he's good right where he's at. Not bad. I think this wide receiver room's underrated. But they better figure that shit out right there. You can't start Logan Smothers. You can't start Logan Smothers. Jacksonville State, you can't start Logan Smothers. Please listen to me. Please. All right, San Jose State's up next. San Jose State lost their best player on defense. He transferred to Arizona. And, it's going to be tough. But I love their defensive tackles on tape. Those guys look good, 48 and 42. They look good. Okay? Beast. I got linebackers. Not bad. And then, obviously, Robert Rahimi just showed up. So, who's Robert Rahimi here? He didn't play last year. Robert Rahimi was a 4 or 5 interception guy while at Liberty 2 years ago. Him and Chris Megason were leading that defense. No, there was no Hodge. It was Robert Rahimi. Robert Rocket Rahimi was the starter. Hodge shows up last year, and everybody's like, oh, my God, he's great. Now he's at Colorado. Look at Rocket Rahimi was better. Robert Rahimi is better. He didn't play last year. He was supposed to transfer to SMU. Something fell through. I don't know if it was grades, transcripts, transfers, whatever, but it fell through. So he just didn't waste the year of eligibility. He decided not to play. So now he's back and gets to play, and he says, I'm going to go play for Nehemiah Lolo, Coach K, whatever. I think he's a pretty special kid. I think it's pretty neat. We'll see what happens. They have some other guys on their team. They picked up a pair of twins from San Diego, the Toreros. These guys played at De La Salle High School. They are followers of the channel. Man, their names escape me right now. They've reached out to me on TikTok multiple times. I helped them get their scholarship back at San Diego 2 years ago. They were off the team. They were floating around in the transfer portal, nowhere to go, and I helped bridge that gap back with their team. They give me a lot of credit for that, and I appreciate them for that. And I'm forgetting a young man's name, and I feel terrible for forgetting his name. I deal with so many names every day. Oh, what's your name, man? And when I see his name, I'll remember. Son of a bitch. Hey, I apologize. But he's not on the depth chart, but they're there. So I do like some of the defensive backs at San Jose State. They're not going to be good. No pass rush whatsoever that I saw. Justin Stearns, Ethan Powell, I don't see it. And I think it's going to be a bad pass rush. ULM, hey, shout out to ULM. One of their coaches reached out to me to let me know we're going to shock somebody. Now, when people say we're going to shock somebody, Louisiana Monroe, look at all this yellow. Look at all these transfers. I understand, most of it's JUCO, by the way. I understand you're under the impression your team's going to be great, and you're trying to convince me you're going to shock somebody. You're going to have to shock me, bro, because I ain't going out on a limb to say ULM's any good. They got a good running back room. They're kind of tough. I don't know. I don't know what else to say about them. I watch them on tape. I'm like, cool. So I like their linebackers and their corners, just to be clear. So if you look here, linebackers, Carl Glass, corners, Gotze, Vigors. Like, these guys are good players. On tape, very good players. Like the linebackers and corners. Problem I have there is if your best players on defense are the second and third level, that means we're going to get a good 5 or 6 chunk yards before you make the tackle, if you will. So that's how I feel about them. Coastal Carolina. I'll get back to the chat here in a little bit. Coastal Carolina, I believe they've been on the decline for a little bit now. Hopefully Vasco can figure out, but there's no way Vasco's better than what they just lost, right? And defensively, losing a star corner to the NFL early hurts, and that happened. I just look at the team, and I'm like, all right, there's some good players. There are. McDoom's a beast. Matthew McDoom's a beast. Courtney Eubanks, these are good players. Good players on the corners. Wyatt Gideon's not a bad player. He's an old school, man. He looks like a linebacker. Not a bad player. But all in all, I didn't expect Wyatt Gideon to start. I thought they brought Barry Brown in to be the starter, and then Wyatt Gideon just beat him out. And that's really good development, if you will. But Coastal looks like they have a down defense this year. You know, they're at the bottom down here. It's tough. Charlotte. This one can change. It can, but I'm trying my best not to overhype Charlotte's defense. First thing I'll say is their defensive line is the size of SEC defensive linemen. Like, they're huge. They're getting their players from Power 4. All these guys are hand-me-downs from Power 4. And starting with Damon Clowney, Jadeveon Clowney's cousin, Jonathan Wallace. Like, all these guys are big, bro. Sings, all these guys can play. And if you look at the chart here, I gave them a lot of respect. And then you go to the corners, C.J. Burton. Dante Balfour is the best player on this defense, period. And they somehow got transfers from Boston College, and I still could never find the connection on the staff from Boston College. But they got 2 guys from Boston College. The guy, though, Dante Balfour, is an NFL defender. A little undersized, but that's my guy. I watch tape. That's my guy. They have a lot of turnover at linebacker. They got to figure it out. I don't like everything about them. Don't like their safeties. But the corner, Balfour, stud. I'm and I'm impressed he stayed and didn't go get a paycheck somewhere. I'm serious. Not a bad player. East Carolina coming up. You see it here. I have East Carolina ranked 108th in the country. Looking at East Carolina's defense, I know the linebackers are better than Temple's, right? Because Temple's starting a guy that couldn't play for you. But when I look at this team, the strength is their defensive tackles and their corners. You got Andrew Wilson Lamp coming into the transfer portal, and then Siobhan Revel coming back. Good players. All in all, nobody's like a home run hitter. Nobody's like impressed me. I know the defense that I first saw where I got like super impressed, and comparing East Carolina to Charlotte, I was more impressed with Charlotte. Although the rating is East Carolina above Charlotte, I was more impressed with Charlotte than East Carolina. Remember, I saw Charlotte first, and then I saw East Carolina, and that's how I felt about it. All right, Colorado State. It's a shame they're down here, but the reality is their defensive line needs a lot of work, and they just lost an amazing rusher in Kamara, pass rusher to the NFL draft. When I look at Colorado State, the defensive line is not great. But, man, do they got some DBs. And I know everybody out there hates Henry Blackburn because he laid that hit on Travis Hunter. But Henry Blackburn and Jack Howell lead this team in tackles. Like, they're everywhere. Those guys coming back are a wealth of experience and ability. I like the way they pop on tape. Shout out to Colorado State. Great safeties and then pretty solid linebackers. Pretty solid. That guy Jock is cool, man. I even like his name, Jock. Bro, get off my jock. Get off my jock. Oh, stop jocking me. Okay, maybe I'm aging myself here. We're cool. UAB. I'm going to get to the chat in a little bit here. I believe I have UAB as in a U. Yeah, UAB Blazers. Unfortunately for them, a lot of guys have been getting stolen by the transfer portal. They're NFL caliber guys who have been holding their team together. But either way, like UAB still has a solid linebacker room. This Everett Rochelle dude, what a monster they found. And he's only, he's going to be a true sophomore this year. What an incredible player. OC Brothers coming in. Never really panned out as a 4 or 5 star guy. But he's still a treat to have at UAB. I like UAB's team, man. I like the whole thing. I want to say that it's unfortunate that they're ranked where they're ranked because I have to take that into account. But I really like Jacob Zeno as a quarterback. Trent Dilfer, developing quarterback, sounds like a recipe for success. And then we all know Isaiah Jacobs is actually a really good running back. By the way, so is Armani a good one, the LSU transfer. These are good players, man. And shout out to Jalen Kitna for getting on a roster out there. Landry Liddy better never see the field. Keep Landry Liddy off the field. I'm just letting you know. But for the most part, this defense is – I'm rooting for these underdogs. I really am. I'm going to stop after UConn and go back to the chat. I'm very impressed with UConn. You guys know the deal. If you follow the channel, I believe that – I'm trying to find Connecticut. Sorry about that. I believe that UConn – knocked it out the park with the transfer portal, but I'm also very realistic when I look at them as a whole, if you will. So when you look at the depth chart here, this doesn't have all their players. There's so many other players that joined this team via the transfer portal, and they don't quite have it right. So there's that, and maybe they're not on the team, but I saw them on the roster, so I'm good there. UConn, defensive front, not the greatest. Jack Barton coming in from Georgia Tech. He's not really from Georgia Tech. He's from Furman. Just went to Georgia Tech for a semester, found out he can't play there. Like I said, he couldn't, and now he's here, so shout out to him. But that Jaden Simon coming over with his brother Julian. The Simon brothers played high school ball up in Washington, went to USC, transferred to Tulsa. Now they're here. These are good players, man. These are good players, especially Julian. It's pretty crazy that they have these linebackers that are all studs. Aaron Key, Formia Brown, Julian Simon, and they brought in the leading tackler from Troy. Like, they have an amazing linebacker room. You see it as 7. It's another 7 that most people wouldn't even talk about. And then the safeties for me are next level. Jarvis Sims, Rante Jones. I thought it was Durante. I think it's Durante. They call him Ronte Jones, but it's Durante. And then Malik Dixon-Williams. Those guys, 1 and 2. Safeties and linebackers, UConn's got them. They need to figure out that defensive front, but UConn's got a special team. Like, they got the chance to be good if Nick Evers can do something. Just letting you know. All right, back to the chat. Shout out to you guys. Sorry if we're dragging this out. We're going to be here today. It's Sunday. I don't know if you got somewhere to be, but we're going to keep talking about defenses. All right, let me interact with this. Properties, my bad. Cancel. I'm trying to get in this box. There we go. Hey, I'm trying to get in this box. Pause. All right, so we're in the chat now. Dude said, you're goofy. Please don't be on the show if you think I'm goofy, man. Just leave. Rico really be knowing. Are you doing every team? Of course. Last second win. Got all that, read all that. Not too much chat. That's fine. South Carolina. Shout out to South Carolina. They're going to be much higher on the rankings. That's a fact. I think Ryan Day made the right choice naming Will Howard the starting quarterback for Ohio State this year. Yeah, I don't know what. There was no debate. What are we doing? What? You thought Will Howard was competing for the starting quarterback job? I don't think there was ever a quarterback competition. That's dumb. There was no quarterback competition. That's just uninformed nonsense. Excuse me for a second. I just lost my other screen. I'm cycling through some things here, trying to get it back. So you guys can't see it. I'm in triage mode as I sit here. I will figure it out. Got one back. I will figure it out. Got two back. We're good. All right. So shout out to the chat. No need to dwell on that. We'll go back to the defenses. If you got any questions, comments, or concerns, drop it in the chat. TikTok, you can move over as well. I don't really care. Moving on. Where were we? We were on Connecticut. So the next team I want to talk about is Sam Houston. Used to be Sam Houston State. Now they just go by Sam Houston, if you didn't know that. It's abbreviated now. They still got Sam SHSU, but everywhere I look, they're supposed to just be Sam Houston. Yep, no more Sam Houston State. So, Sam Houston Bearcats, one of the teams the MVPs don't bet on no matter what. We don't quite know what to do with these guys. I can tell you that and I'm gonna say this very carefully. The caliber of player at Sam Houston, UTSA, North Texas, those three, is just a little bit higher than other players of similar team styles. Like the MAC, right? So the MAC gets their players from like Michigan and Ohio in that area, regionally. And Houston, Sam Houston and UTSA, they get their players from Texas. And I'm just telling you, and I don't mean to sound crazy, but these players are just a little bit better than those other guys. Like when I assess tape, I'm like, oh, I'm looking at a Texas team. I'm looking at Texas talented players. They're just a little bit better. And people want to ignore it. But like the guys on this defense, some of them are so good athletically, and people don't notice. Like I'm going to give you guys an example. Oregon. If you go to Oregon and you want to look at Oregon's defense and who they have, they got some great players. But if you go down here to this guy, Cam Alexander, who's Cam Alexander? Well, he had 14 passes deflected last year at UTSA. 5'11", 190, 14 passes deflected at UTSA. One of the nation's leaders in passes deflected. So he was at UTSA, but before that he was at Sam Houston. And just a guy on the defense and a kickoff returner and a punt returner. He's a good player. Just another guy, though. And when he transferred from Sam Houston to UTSA, zero fanfare. No one talked about it. Now he transferred from UTSA to Oregon, and apparently he's a 4-star, 5-star, and Oregon's amazing, and they found the guy, and it's like, man. And I'm not saying the kid's not good. What I'm saying is there are random-ass guys on these teams that you don't know that are good enough to play at your favorite team in about 12 months. And it's sad. So some of those guys I believe in are these linebackers. Sincere Jackson, Caven Gaither. These linebackers are great. And look at where Jackson comes from. City College of San Francisco. Fresno. So that tells me he could transfer someday to Fresno State. If he plays good enough, why wouldn't he transfer to Fresno State? What about USC? What about UCLA? Or Utah? Or Oregon? Or Arizona? That's a West Coast guy. What if he plays out of his mind? That's how good these players are. They can go play at other schools. So I like him. Shout out to him. Props to him. Shout out to Sam Houston. Doesn't look very good on defense this year compared to last year. Last year they were very stout. Their offense was gross. Speaking of coaching, remember I was talking about coaching? Or I should say, speaking of gross. Ohio's offense looks like it's about to be terrible. Losing your top 2 running backs, Saban Gore and some others. Losing your starting quarterback. Losing everything, bro. I don't know how they're going to be any good. And somebody's telling me, Rico, you got to put some respect on Tim Albin. Okay, man. Put some respect on Tim Albin. But let me tell you about Ohio's defense. Looking at it, edge rushers look pretty decent. This Caden Schmitz dude, pretty solid on tape. Young guy. Freshman last year playing. And then you got Walker Burgess here coming in. I mean, you can get excited about them, but they look decent on tape. They look pretty solid on tape. Other than that, I'm not getting too excited about Ohio. Linebackers are serviceable. I'll just use the word serviceable. Safety, same thing. Just, sure. It's a 46. Don't get me wrong, though. Look at Ohio 46 ahead of, if we go down here and we look, they're ahead of certain teams in the MAC. Eastern Michigan, Buffalo, right? And so when you, Central Michigan, Akron, there's already 4 teams. They got a better defense then. Right off rip. So when you look at them, you might think they're pretty good, but they're just playing terrible defenses, terrible teams. Just letting you know. Georgia State. Lost a couple good players in the transfer portal over the last couple years to the West Coast, which is really unique. I believe Muhammad. Was Muhammad from Georgia State? He's at USC now. But when I watch them on tape, I understand they're in a rebuild process. I understand. But they still have good linebackers and good corners. And when I say good, Gavin Pringle's legit. Kenyatta Watson, legit. They're going to find kids who want to come back home and play for them. Shout out to Kevin Swint. We'll see what happens. And Katie McDaniel. These are big school guys coming back to the group of 5 after being at the Power 4. So Power 4 kind of leftovers, if you will, up front on the pass rush. But the linebackers look solid. The corners look solid at Georgia State. Congratulations. Vandy, talk about a terrible defense. Remember, most people just assume Vanderbilt is going to have because they're in the SEC, they say stuff like, oh, they can beat this other team by 40 if they had to play outside of the SEC. No, they can't. I've watched Vanderbilt's talent. I've assessed it all. I've looked at it. They are not that good. If Diego Pavia and Eli Stowers are starting for you, you are exactly what I thought you were. You are New Mexico State. You are not that good. Those are New Mexico State guys. And I love them. And I'm a Diego Pavia guy all day. So looking at Vandy, if you didn't know, I've been on Vandy all offseason. I've been on their over. And I can talk about this now because the season's about to start. Shout out to the MVPs. But I told the MVPs to bet 10 units on Vanderbilt to win over 2.5 games. It was my biggest bet this offseason. I personally bet like $1,000. And that for me, that's 10 units. A unit for me, my unit size is $100. I just believe Vanderbilt's going to win 3 games. No more. 3 games is enough, and I believe they're going to do it. And I think their defense is so bad that it's going to be scary. Okay? It's going to be scary watching them try to do it. But I just hope the offense can stay on the field and get first down. Shout out to Diego Pavia. But looking at Vandy on tape, linebackers, I like Prince Coley. Prince Coley, Notre Dame transfer, knows Clark Lee is a defensive scheme. He's back with the guy who recruited him. I feel you. And then the safeties are good. Safeties are good. Linebackers got potential. But the safeties are good. Outside of that, not the caliber of team you want at the Power 4. As a matter of fact, we're going through the rankings here. Notice, they are the lowest rated defense of any Power 4 school. Lower than the worst team in the Big Ten, lower than the worst team in the ACC, lower than the worst team in the Big 12. Vandy is the worst one. And Northwestern's coming up. And Mississippi State's coming up. That's how bad Vandy is. They're below UMass, bro. They're equal to UMass on defense. And I know. You guys are like, what are you talking about, man? Vandy would blow out UMass by 40. Yeah, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the talent at UMass and Vandy, if they had tryouts tomorrow, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference on defense. You wouldn't be able to tell who's starting and who isn't. I'm not even kidding. You wouldn't. Looking at UMass, just recently did their assessment in the last, I'd say, 3 days. The back end of their defense is actually pretty solid. It's good enough. Nobody in here scares me. They are disciples of Don Brown and the Doctor of the Blitz. If you don't know their head coach, Don Brown, he used to be a defensive coordinator at Arizona, and he blitzes a lot. So we'll see what happens here, but their offense has always been terrible, leaving their defense all alone by themselves. But this is a team that blew out a 10-win New Mexico State team in the first game of the season last year. They blew out New Mexico State, who then went on to win 10 games and blow out Auburn. So you figure that out. But UMass did win for their season opener in a blowout over New Mexico State after I spent the entire offseason talking about UMass's transfer portal class coming together. And then it showed up in week 1, and then it never showed up again. It was crazy. Speaking of not showing up in week 1, Navy last year in Ireland was blown out by like 40 points by Notre Dame. Navy looked gross. Not a good showing for their new head coach, Brian Newberry, former defensive coordinator, he probably deserves to be a defense coordinator. So you would expect the defense to be pretty solid. Of all the service academies, this is the team that's returning the most production. This is the team I believe in. Linebackers are pretty solid. This guy, Colin Ramos, everywhere. Job Grant, everywhere. Just solid linebacker play at Navy. They do got a lot of guys in the box on most of their tape. They look aggressive, but didn't quite get over the hump. A lot of it had to do with their lack of offense. But Navy, by and large, they look like a serviceable defense. Then you have Northwestern. Looks terrible. One thing I'll say about Northwestern is obviously they overachieved last year, winning 8 games, getting to a bowl game, winning their bowl game over Utah. Nobody saw that coming after a 1-11 season and losing your head coach in August. So I'm not mad at them for that. It looks like they'll regress. David Braun, former defensive coordinator at North Dakota State, so we know he's a great coach. We know he knows what he's doing. But looking at this team, one of the coolest things I'll say is the linebackers are good, right? Shout out to Northwestern. Linebackers are good. But there's Nigel Glover. And you see how his name is yellow? That means he's transferring back. Nigel Glover left the team last year. He was a 4-star recruit. And when they fired coach, he jumped in the transfer portal. He said, I'm out of here. And he went to Ohio State. Went to Ohio State for 1 year, and then he realized, I can't play here. Oh, man, I need to get my ass back to Northwestern. I need a Northwestern degree. I'm about to be a journalist for the rest of my life. So he transferred back to Northwestern, saw all their success. He has a chance to be in the 2 deep, so he's here. I just think that's a win in recruiting, so I'm cool with it. Shout out to Metz. Not a bad player as well. They have good players, though, man. This is a good defense. I don't believe in them, like for winning games or anything, but I think their defense is respectable. Now we're at Troy. I know Evan Kramer is going to feel some type of way about this. Shout out to Evan Kramer. I know he's on the staff at Troy, and he's also a friend of the channel. And Evan Kramer is at practice, and he's giving me messages, and he's giving me updates about the depth chart and certain players and whatnot. But when I go watch tape and I look at Troy, I see a team in transition, a team trying to stay relevant. Recently just named former West Virginia quarterback Goose Crowder the starter. I know what they're trying to do. But I also think last year was them reaching a pinnacle, losing a number of seniors, a number of NFL draft picks, and having to recover from that. Losing your head coach. He leaves. He takes players with him to Tulane. So it just feels like Troy is in a rebuild phase, if you will. Your leading tackler jumps in the transfer portal and leaves for UConn. First Indiana, then UConn. Things like that look bad. But that being said, linebacker room's still pretty solid. And just like I talked about Sam Houston having a recruiting pool of Texas and it being very good, Troy, the majority of their players are Alabama and Georgia, and it shows because they have really good players. It's a really good baseline to have. So I like it, man. We'll figure it out. Shout out to Troy. Maybe their coaching will take over and development and they'll win games. But it looks like a tough year for me to believe in Troy. I don't believe in them the way others do. Speaking of not believing in others or believing in a team the way others do, Mississippi State. I know I have a guy, Sultan Aswad is a Mississippi State guy on among the MVPs. I have an insider at Mississippi State, I'm sure, in my MVPs. And I'm going to tell you, they love Mississippi State for whatever reason. But Mississippi State doesn't look good on tape. I'm not excited about it. I don't see anything too impressive. Stone Blanton coming in is a gem in the transfer portal. Congratulations. They got Stone Blanton to come back home. That's a big get for them. But when I assess the team, that's the only thing that really impresses me. The rest of it just feels like marginal Power 4 guys everywhere. Marginal Power 4 guys ever. I don't care what anybody says. When I watch the tape, marginal Power 4 guys, which is a recipe for an okay defense. Look, it's Mississippi State, and I'm not disrespecting them when I rank them equivalent to UTEP. What? Rico, what are you talking about? UTEP sucks. UTEP sucks. Bro, UTEP Miners. New head coach in Scotty Walden. Brought in all kinds of transfers, but when it comes to the defense of UTEP, there's not much you need to bring in. There's a guy right here. His name is Maurice Westmoreland. He wears number 0. Turn on the tape. Maurice Westmoreland is the very best edge rusher in Conference USA. There are 9 teams in Conference USA. He's the very best one. Period. Dot. Is that what the kids say? Period dot. Is that what the girls say when they're arguing with you? This guy's a future NFL player. That man right there is the bee's knees. UTEP got a 7 on the pass rush. Everywhere else looks pretty respectable. I put 4s all across the board. Not bad. And then I gave him a 5 in the secondary and the safeties. A.J. Odoms, good. Moore, good. Oh, no, Odom's the corner. My bad. Corey Chapman. But I really like this team, man. I do. Even Devin Gore over here. This guy's actually pretty good. They got some guys from Gardner-Webb. They got some guys from everywhere. And then if you ever want to see an Emmitt Smith lookalike, it's this guy, Javon Jackson, 1,200-yard rusher transferred in from the FCS. I just like this team, man. I don't like their quarterback play at all. Quarterback leaves so much to be desired. Cade McConnell was trash last year. He had like 2 or 3 really good throws. I don't believe in him. Jaden Smith, by the way, played with that linebacker in high school that I talked about on Central Michigan. Yeah, he used to play on an amazing team in high school, and he was the star wide receiver. Had to go to Eastern Kentucky, played great, and now he transferred here. Trey Goodman, beast. These are FCS wide receivers that just transferred in, and I believe in all of them, bro. I believe in all of them. Yeah. UTEP, gonna surprise some people. They're probably gonna be 3rd or 4th best in Conference USA. I like UTEP. Arkansas State, it's their year to be great. Let's see it. I think next year they'll be great, but here they are. Arkansas State, shout out to Sam. Oh no, I got Arizona State up. As soon as I looked at the teams, I'm like, what the hell, Sam Levitt? Arkansas State, Jalen Raynor, come on now. Shout out to Jalen Raynor, by the way, best quarterback nobody talks about. Defensively, when I go turn on the tape, they unfortunately lost one of their better players in the transfer portal, and that's okay. But you see it. I believe in the defensive tackles, the linebackers, and the safeties. So it's like a jump. You know, I believe in one position group at every single level, but not the corners independently, not the pass rush independently. But I do believe I gave them 6s in certain areas, and that's pretty good. 6, 6, 6 is good. I'm seeing the devil. But you don't want to see any 3s and 4s. South Alabama, they really disappointed me last year. I thought they were amazing. In the preseason, I was talking about South Alabama being real, and then they didn't show up. They did beat Oklahoma State, beat the crap out of them, and then they didn't show up when they mattered, though. And they left me kind of high and dry, left me hanging. But if you want to know the truth, South Alabama has really good safeties. Voisin is the real deal. Him and his brother. His brother plays offense. Devin Voisin, Jaden Voisin, very good players. Very good players, okay? So when I watch tape, Ricky Fletcher, Reggie Neely, all very good players. I like everything about their safeties. their corners, and really it's the secondary, and then I think it's the defensive tackles, and that's it. So Maurice Strong, Wycavius Thomas, legit. Not too excited about their pass rush. Linebackers just leave a lot to be desired. Secondary looked like they got players out there, and then they got some big boys up front. That's the South Alabama defense in a nutshell. That'll get you ranked down here. Houston. Sorry if I'm dragging this out, y'all. We'll try to go as fast as possible. Houston defense, underwhelming is what I'll say. And it's unfortunate for Willie Fritz. He's having to figure it out with what he has. Remember I talked about the New Mexico safety, A.J. Halsey. I talked about New Mexico had a player that was better than anything I'd ever seen. It was A.J. Halsey, and it was 2 years ago. He's now at Houston. I still think he's better than any player should ever be at Houston. I don't know how to – am I saying that right? Look, I gave him a 9 at safety. Everybody else is a 4. Everybody else is okay. Even McCutcheon, right? Latrell McCutcheon Sr., he's been everywhere. Oklahoma, USC, Netflix, he's been everywhere. But that number 9, that Houston safety is something else, Halsey. And then Massey's coming over from SMU, I think, and he's played a lot of football, or he's been around for a long time, but he hasn't played much. So I don't know how I feel about him. But that kid right there, Halsey, the truth. Batten coming over, Michael Batten. Doesn't move me all that much. He was ULM's leading tackler last year. He's fine. He tied for leading tackles. He's fine. But athletically, so I kept him at 4. I probably should have gave him a 5, but he's a 4. Washington State, remember I told you these teams are taking a step back. Oregon State and Washington State, not quite built the way they need to be. I'm assuming Washington State's the second wash. And when you look at them, let me see what I said over here. I'm going to just check the ratings. Yeah, linebackers, decent, and defensive tackles, decent. That's just because you got big guys that can plug up the middle. David Gusta didn't move me otherwise. And that's saying something. Cyrus Webster's actually a stud. Did I not give him love? I gave him kind of love. I gave him a 5. I like Webster more than Milani over here. I like Cyrus Webster. That's a cool dude. Kind of light skin. Kind of light skin. I don't know how else to describe him, bro. That's just what he looks like. Bowling Green. 6 and 6 and 6. Once again, you'll see this recipe a lot. I believe in Bowling Green this year. Probably the 3rd or 4th best team in the MAC. Just looking at them defensively, I want to make sure if there's anybody I want to mention. There's really nobody by name, right? Not like other teams. But I like their defensive tackles, their linebackers, and their corner or their safeties. But I really nobody to go like, yo, you need to see this guy. It just felt like a solid defense when I looked at it. I don't remember who I talked about as their hidden gem. Was it Malcolm Johnson? It might have been Malcolm Johnson, the transfer from Auburn. God, he's going to do something special. It probably was Malcolm Johnson. Bowling Green's got a team, y'all. You better respect this team. I'm just letting you know. I'm going to jump to the chat here in a second, check to see if you guys have anything to say, any questions. Baylor, ranked really low. Not my problem. Not my problem. Shout out to Baylor. They're here. Matt Jones is a baller. I'm letting you know now. Matt Jones is a mother flipping problem at linebacker. I like him a lot. Number 2, Baylor's got a hell of a linebacker. NFL caliber. For sure. I'm with it. Everybody else, I understand Devin Bobby had a lot of production, but Baylor's defense leaves a lot to be desired. Georgia Tech, my God, man. I want Georgia Tech to be so good, right? I live in Georgia. I want Georgia Tech to be good, and I really love their offense. But their defense, as good as you can say they are. I watched the tape. The secondary's bad. They don't make plays when they need to. Defensive tackles are legit. Thomas Gore coming in, former Georgia State kid who transferred down to Miami for a year. Was it Miami? UCF. I don't remember. But it was one of the Florida schools. He's a tree stump. Like 5'11", 300 pounds. He just get in the way. Just put him in a hole and he's fine. Like he blocks everything. And then Zeke Biggers is good. So I like their defensive tackles. Linebackers are solid, but everything else gets pretty bad. Everything else gets pretty bad. And I will say this. I want to see the day when Warren Burrell's the starting corner. This guy used to be good at Tennessee before injuries. Saeed Gibbs used to be good at the FCS. Like I want to see the day these guys become great. and then a guy like E.J. Lightsey in your starting lineup. Former 3 or 4 star kid coming out of Fitzgerald in high school here in Georgia, 2A state champ type stuff, went to Georgia. When he went to Georgia, they were singing his praises. Doesn't make the starting lineup. Now he transferred to Georgia Tech, and now he's nobody. That's how the recruiting websites will do you. So shout out to them. Next is Western Kentucky. Kind of impressed me. Western Kentucky is one of those things where we know they're going to score a ton of points. Man, don't make me redo this. Man, I'm sorry, guys. The Art Lads thing is making me drag just a little bit. We know they're going to score a ton of points. Shout out to Tyson Helton and what he does with his team. They're going to be a pass-first team. TJ Finley just transferred in, and they're going to do things. But defensively, safeties are solid. Defensive tackles look special to me. This Wheeler dude, he's cool, man. Hosea Wheeler, I look at numbers, bro. 98, and then Jalil Rivera-Harvey coming in. They're getting beef up front. More power to them. But that 98 is cool. That 98 is good. Good player. Liberty. Don't believe in Liberty at all. I know people are high on Liberty, and they think they're going to win it all. Liberty's offense, I think Liberty's a product of Jamie Chadwell. He's a great coach. But I know these players, talent-wise, aren't very good. They aren't. Like Quentin Cooley, like I said, third string at Wake Forest, and then goes to Liberty and rushes for 1,400 yards. He's still third string, bro. He still can't start at a Power 4 school. A little slow, a little fat, a little chubby. Great offensive line. That's what Liberty's about. At least that's what they were about. Here, their safeties really move me. Safeties are good on tape. Reese, Green, Griffin. Good. Rest of the defense, not so good. I'm not sold on the rest of the defense. And I see Traylor Jackson. I like Traylor Jackson. Let me say this again. I like Traylor Jackson. Shout out to him. He finally saw a video I made about him, or a post I made about him on Twitter. He saw it like 3 months later, and he wrote it out to me. So I appreciate him. Traylor Jackson, good player. I'm not moved by a lot of this tape, though. I'm just being real. So they feel like they're down here. Memphis. Love Memphis offense. One of the top in America. Defense has always struggled. They're going to have to win shootouts. They tried to address the defense like crazy. Look at all this. They brought in all kinds of guys. And I love, there's Javonte Mackey, one of the top tacklers at Arkansas State last year. One of the top linebackers at Arkansas State. Was it Arkansas State or Northern Illinois? It's Arkansas State. Arkansas State, yeah, I'm right. One of the top tacklers at Arkansas State. Bring in Elijah Herring, who led Tennessee in tackles. He's a Memphis kid. Led Tennessee in tackles. Was only the starter because of an injury to Peli. That's fine. But when you look at this team, Devin Baldwin, Jacksonville State? Jacksonville State, Devin Baldwin? Yep. So, good stuff, man. Big kid. One of those guys. My computer's lagging. My bad. One of those guys that I said Jacksonville State lost on the defensive front, and they had to just stay relevant with what they had, and it's unfortunate because there's Baldwin. But all in all, a lot of these players on Marshall's defense, not good last year. The Miners might figure it out. Kobe Minor and Darryl. Where's Darryl? Darryl Minor. They might add some value to this defense. But for me, when I watch it on tape again, and I do my thing, the linebackers are severely upgraded. The corners are okay. Shout out to Kobe Minor and Ross. Outside of that, man, it is not championship caliber. Speaking of not championship caliber, I told you guys Boise State is not my pick in the Mountain West. A lot of it has to do with portions of their offense and defense. Boise State has this number 91. If you don't know who he is, Ahmed Hassanan or whatever, I'm bad with names, bro. I just do jersey numbers. I ain't got time for all this. I do jersey numbers. When you watch film, you watch numbers anyways. 91 is him. 91 is him at Boise State. That dude, I gave him an 8. Where is it at? Boise State? Yeah, I gave him an 8. Pass rush, 8. Legit. Linebackers, very good. Respect the linebackers, but that 8 is real. Great pass rush at Boise State. Cincinnati. Cincy. It's a shame they lost Jaheim Thomas to the transfer portal 2 years ago. Been trying to recover from that ever since. They got some players in the transfer portal that they probably believe in. Great defensive tackles. Dante Corleone is great. He's probably the best player on this defense, talent-wise. NFL caliber. Great player, number 2. Loved everything about him. And then when I look on the back end, I see guys like Derek Cantine coming in from Virginia Tech, former Georgia Southern, former Evans High School, grew up 10 minutes from me, bro. Like, I know these kids. I know these players. But there's still a lot to be desired. And at Cincy, you're going to have to put it together. Now, here's what I will say. They have a chance to be sneaky good, y'all. I love their quarterback, Brendan Sorsby. I love the running back, Corey Kiner, 1,000-yard rusher. These guys have a chance to be sneaky good. Very good offensive line. They have a chance to control the ball, get first downs, and give their defense some rest. And if you do that, sky's the limit, man. I understand they're ranked this low. I understand there's some holes here. Cincinnati is not as bad as you think they are. That's what I'll say. They're not as bad as you think they are. That offensive line is beast. Beast offensive line. Tinsley, Kandra, Buford, I'm telling you. NFL, like that's real. Shout out to Cincinnati. Nobody's paying attention except for me. I know these players. I know what I'm seeing on tape. Defensively, obviously need a lot of work. Utah State just lost your head coach. What do you do? I don't know. Try to figure it out. So what do? You put out a defense, and I really believe in their safeties. Jordan Vincent, Ike Larson, Jaden Francois leading this team. The safeties are the best thing that I saw on tape for Utah State, period. By the way, defense tackles, not bad. Iniguez coming over is a little overrated, but he's coming over from New Mexico State. A little overrated, but still not bad. Okay. North Texas. Eric Morris is not to be played with. North Texas is always going to score a ton of points just because of their offensive scheme, their coach, the way they get down, what they do. I already told you guys Ragsdale is a great running back nobody's talking about. Isaiah Ragsdale. Watch, he'll rush for 1,000 yards. Just watch. But they got a team of players they're going to put up points just by scheme-wise. But defensively, Shipley coming in from Oregon. I told everybody about Shipley. I played for his dad in high school. He was my defensive line coach. So he wasn't really my coach. He was just the defensive line coach on our high school team. I was a secondary. I was starting free safety. He was the guy. You know, his dad was pretty big dude too. So that's a local kid I believe in. But Ridge Tejada, great. You know, good transfer, whatever. But the defense leaves a lot to be desired at North Texas. Love their defensive tackles on tape. Gave them 7. That's really good. 7 is great at a group of 5 school. And then 6 is for the linebackers. 6 is for the safeties. Think they got some pieces. They got some pieces. North Texas defense will play better than people anticipate. And I think it'll get them the ball back and let them go. Western Michigan, it's a team I really want to be good all the time. And they don't come through when it matters. And they just look like an average defense. Everything's kind of solid across the way. And shout out to Lance Taylor, because I really like Lance Taylor as a head coach. You good young guy. I like these corners. Bill Hall, Cone. I'm saying his name wrong. He's the transfer from Indiana State, the Sycamores. He's very good, at least on tape. Tate Halleck, 6'4". Transfer from Michigan State, very good. I've talked about all these guys in the past when I was doing my top 25 for Group of 5. I just like this defense. I think it's pretty crafty, man. I really do. It's solid all the way around. No superstars anywhere. It's just not bad. Even the Wahlberg stuff. Like you see the Singers? They've played a lot of football, man. They really have. I'm excited to see what happens with the guys. They got size in the secondary. They look like they hit hard. They have a really good running back in Jalen Buckley to give them a lot of breaks. Even Abdus, he's a change of pace back. Keyshawn King, their whole running back room's great. Keyshawn King used to be leading rusher at Virginia Tech 2 years ago before Bishal Tutton. Love Kenneth Womack at wide receiver. This team's going to be pretty solid. Western Michigan, probably 4th or 5th best team in the MAC. Probably. I'll have to double check on how the outcomes go. ODU lost a ton of players and is doing their best to try to figure it out. They lost a ton of their leading tacklers and stuff to the transfer portal, so they had to bring in a whole new secondary. You see it down here. And when I assess them, I still don't care. They have Jason Henderson at linebacker. Like, I don't care what you say. Jason Henderson will probably lead the nation in tackles. That guy is everywhere. I'm going to be mad when the NFL doesn't want Jason Henderson. He will be on my list. He will be on my hidden gems list. Best thing out there. Give him an 8. Give him an 8 for ODU. And if you don't know Jason Henderson and you just got introduced to him in this podcast, congratulations. Shout out to you. I hope you learned about him. I hope you're still watching, right? Because I believe in that guy. So shout out to him. I'm going to move over to Pitt, and then I'm going to check the chat here shortly. Hopefully there's not much in it. If there is, we'll interact. If not, we'll keep walking. Keep talking. Looking at Pitt Panthers defense, they lost a ton of players to the transfer portal, and the cupboard, you think it would be bare? It's not entirely bare, but it's definitely not where it needs to be. So pass rush is solid. I gave it a 6 with Matlock and Scott. I gave it a 6 because I like the skill sets, and then I went straight to safeties with an 8. Safeties are absolute monsters. McMillan, McIntyre, and this star is considered a safety, Kyle Lewis. Good players. Everything else, my God, were they better before the transfer portal? Obviously. They lost a ton of transfers to South Carolina and then another set of transfers to Colorado. So when you see the improvement on Colorado and South Carolina's defense, you can thank Pitt. That's why Pitt's down here and you haven't even seen South Carolina or Colorado's defense in the rankings at all. That's right, because they got better players than Pitt. Because they took Pitt's players. BYU's defense is a little tricky, kind of like Air Force. BYU actually has overly developed players. They go on their mission, so they're a little older than others. Some of these guys are married, like Ben Bywater. I think he's married. No, not Bywater. Who's one of these guys is married, bro? Tyler Batty's a beast on the defensive edge. I'm letting you know that right now. Bagnall is the transfer coming in. Wyoming? Where did Bagnall come from? Boise State. I knew it was up there. Look at that. I'm just giving you a region I think he's from. Nonetheless, good pass rush. Shout out to BYU. The hidden gem here is their linebacker, Jack Kelly. Coming in. He's coming with his defensive coordinator. Jack Kelly looks like a mother flipping problem. He's on every tackle. Yep. He's great. I like Jack Kelly a lot. Popped on tape. That'll be a grown man. And so what I'm saying about BYU is they have the potential to actually really raise their ranking. Like what I would say is they're at 54 right now. They have a chance for their defensive tackles to be around a 6. Like they have a chance for things to improve and shoot way up the chart. And that's great for them if they could ever figure out their quarterback play, because they have a really good running back and their whole wide receiver room is back from last year. So they have all the receivers back, a really good running back, and then their defense is just very senior-laden, kind of grown men. Yeah, that's why BYU can win games that you didn't expect them to. And that's why they're really hard to gamble against, because you don't know who's going to show up that day. You don't know who can handle them or not. It's just the way they are. Boston College. I had a guy write me yesterday. This is going to be a true story. The guy who runs the UMass NIL. He runs the whole UMass NIL. He lets me know every time they sign a player. He writes to me on Twitter. And he talks to me as often as he wants to. And he just gives me updates on the players, the contract disputes, the agent disputes, who they're working with, what they're doing. And he wrote to me yesterday and he said, "Hey, Rico, I was just at Boston College's practice because I'm friends with Bill O'Brien's nephew, something. So he was at the practice. He was like, just watch them practice, and I'm comparing Boston College to UMass. He goes, I think Boston College is going to win 9 games. He said, they look so great, I think they're going to win 7 to 9 games, is what he told me. So I read what he wrote. I went and checked my charts. I went and checked my stuff. And I wrote him back and said, I have Boston College winning 3 games. I said, I have them winning 2 to 3 games, bro. If they surpass my expectations, that's on them. Like, let them know they're big. I'm their biggest op, bro. I'm the guy. I got them winning nothing. So, shout out to Boston College. They got a new head coach, and I hope they put it together. But when I assessed them on tape, I saw really good defensive tackles, okay, and a solid linebacker room that I really believed in. The linebacker room is actually, 2 of them are coming back from injury. They haven't been around all year last year. So when you saw Boston College, one of the things I talked to the MVPs about was I thought Boston College linebackers were slow. And I felt they were susceptible to dual threat quarterbacks. So anytime I saw a dual threat quarterback on the opposition, right, Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, anytime I saw a guy who could run, I'm like, yo, take the quarterback's rushing yards. Because I know he's going to tuck it and go and catch the corner. And I know he's going to get the over on the rushing yards. And sure enough, Haynes King goes for 100+. Kyron Drones goes for 100+. they had an issue at linebacker last year. Now they got their linebackers back from injury, and there's a chance they're going to be really improved in the linebacker room. Like, those linebackers look really impressive to me at Boston College. That could increase their number immensely. But their corners leave a lot to be desired. I don't believe in their secondary like that. Losing Hafley, going to the NFL, now a defensive coordinator for the Packers, I believe. Like, you're not going to get better when you lose a guy like Hafley as a head coach who is a secondary coach and understands that you're not going to get better in the secondary. So I hope they get better at linebacker and they can stop dual threat running backs, or quarterbacks, excuse me. But Boston College, realistically, not one of the better defenses in the ACC. They're right behind, and I know, and it sounds crazy, they're right behind FIU. And if you think players at FIU can't play at Boston College, like, let's just say you think that in a blanket statement. Let me explain to you that Grayson James is right here, and that is the backup quarterback from FIU. He is now the backup quarterback at Boston College. And he might be the starter someday if he can complete passes more than Thomas Castellanos, who can't complete passes. Great runner, can't complete passes. What I'm trying to tell you guys is there's not a huge talent gap like you would think, especially the FIU defense. I am telling you, FIU might not win a lot of games. I know their offense sucks. I know you don't believe in Keontae Jenkins. He's not very good. The running back room is great. Shout out to Lawrence and Owens coming back, and Joseph. All three running backs coming back from last year. Wide receivers are pretty okay. Quarterbacks got real suspect. Defense, dogs. Dogs at FIU on defense. I have them ranked 74th in the country. That is wild for some people. That is wild. But I watched the tape. I wrote to every one of these players individually. Every single one of these guys, I wrote to them individually to let them know I watched their tape. No shit. Wrote to them and said, guys, I think your defense is great. Look at the scores I gave them. 4, 5, 7, 6, 6. These linebackers, Reggie Peterson, leader of the defense, Elijah Anderson-Terry. These guys are something else, bro. Good linebackers. That Cole Gustafsson, he's a JUCO kid. I turn on his tape. He's enormous, 6'4", 300-pound, white dude, fucking dancing bear. Thought it was amazing. Defensive backs, legit. Hezekiah, the name, Hezekiah Massis. He's got the name, bro. He's got the name. Speaking of names, that's Brian Blades II. I know. Dad's a little infamous. Killed his cousin. But I don't care. Athletic family. Al Blades. Benny Blades. Brian Blades. Now you got the son. Whoo. These are players, bro. This is Miami football. This is Florida football. I saw these defenders. I looked at the tape on every player. I'm like, bro, why am I looking at FAU this hard? Why am I looking at FIU this hard? Better than Boston College, or at least equivalent. If they're better in the rankings, it's because I value something more. There's like tiebreakers behind the scenes that you guys can't see. Then there's Georgia Southern right ahead of them. Georgia Southern, and I'm going to tell you guys something about Georgia Southern. The biggest issue I have with Georgia Southern is I don't know how good Dexter Williams is at quarterback. I just don't know how good he is. I watched the tape. I understand. Got it. Don't know how good he is. Outside of Georgia Southern, quarterback and wide receiver room being suspect to me, this offensive line is elite. Running back room is very good. Offensive line is great for a Power 5, for a Power 4 school. Or Group of 5. Group of 5 school, offensive line is great. I get to their defense, though. Hey, they turn out to be a lot better than I anticipated. Decent pass rush. Linebackers lead this group. Stroud and Watson Trent, number 1. I'm going to be cheering for these guys. Oh, by the way, when I started this episode, I started talking about Kennesaw State. Their leading tackler left in the transfer portal, and their star corner, white corner, who I thought was very good, are right here in the starting lineup for Georgia Southern. I think Georgia Southern found 2 gems. These are one kid, well, he's from South Carolina, the other's from Georgia. Complete studs. This looks the part, man. And if you would have landed Chance Gamble coming out of high school, it'd been amazing for Georgia Southern. So they have him now. Congratulations. This defense looks special. They look good. I know they opened the season with Boise State. I'm just saying. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Letting you know now. UTSA's up next. We know UTSA has a great brand of football. We know they have an amazing pipeline. And they went out and got some players. Where's Texas El Paso, bro? I'm looking for UTSA. What am I doing? San Antonio. We know what they did. Okay? UTSA went and lost Trey Moore, one of the best edge rushers in America. I believe Trey Moore is the best player at Texas right now. Like, when I look at Texas's roster and I evaluate them, the best player on the roster at Texas is Trey Moore. That sounds crazy, but it's the truth. Trey Moore is the best player at Texas. And he comes from UTSA. He's the very best player on Texas. So when I look at this defense, how do you recover from losing Trey Moore? Well, you don't really recover from it. But I can tell you that your defensive tackles are great. Your safeties are great. Go do what you can. Now, they might have a bad year. They could have an off year. A lot of that has to do with the fact that Frank is now gone. You had a quarterback who was amazing for years upon years, a 4,000-yard passer, all this stuff. So now what do? Well, you hand the ball off to Kevorian Barnes a lot, and you don't ever stop. You just keep giving the ball to your 3 running backs, Rocco Griffin, Robert Henry, who's a damn hammer in the red zone, and Kevorian Barnes. But the way you're going to keep that ball is your defense needs to be on point, and I think it's a pretty solid defense. At this point, when we get into the rankings, if you're a group of 5 team, you're one of the better group of 5 teams out there. This is very solid rankings for group of 5. Remember, there's about 68 Power 4 teams, if you include the Notre Dames of the world. So once you start getting around here, you're going to see the elite group of 5 with scrub Power 4s. And here we go. UTSA and then App State right above them. Now, App State, all the praise for App State is their offense. It's got all the pieces to be amazing. App State's going to be one of the favorites in the Sun Belt. They're amazing. But when I watched App State on tape for defense, when I did my research and I looked, linebackers and safeties were everything. Linebackers and safeties looked good. And a lot of that has to do with Favors just being amazing. I believe he had 4 interceptions last year, Jordan Favors. And then Miles Farmer coming in the transfer portal from Syracuse, former leading tackler, one of the leading tacklers at Nebraska 2 years ago before his DUI. Avion Cole is the only question mark, and if he can't get it done, they do have depth in the secondary. I thought this team was good, man. Top to bottom, pretty solid. Top to bottom, pretty solid. Nate Johnson's got a lot of potential. Number 90, true freshman last year, a lot of potential. But top to bottom, pretty solid. Offense is another echelon above this defense, and the defense is good. Shout out to App State. Looking pretty sweet. Tulane's next. Tulane, if you think they're going to have a bad year or they're going to have a down year because no Willie Fritz, I got news for you. That ain't happening. Tulane's about to be just as good. Tulane's a real threat to Memphis in the American. Tulane is solid. I love their offense. Obviously, they have a 1,200-yard rusher, Mekhi Hughes, over here. Nobody ever talks about. They're still trying to figure out their quarterback battle, still trying to figure out the rest. But their wide receiver room is elite. Wide receiver room's elite. Offensive line's elite. And then we get to the defense. What are we doing? So when I look at Tulane, I started with the defensive tackles. These dudes are awesome. Awesome defensive tackles in the group of 5. Decent pass rush. This will really help. Aiden Huntington from ULM, pretty solid player. Tyler Grubbs is a hell of a linebacker, bro. Jesus Machado coming back from injury. These are guys, man. These are monsters. I'm cool with both these dudes right here. Grubbs and Machado look the part. Shout out to Tulane linebackers. Corners are a question mark. Lou Tillery left a lot to be desired when I looked at the tape. We'll see if Jaden Lewis can threaten him. Apparently, they got a freshman in the 2 deep. I haven't looked at his tape. That's on me. But the rest of these guys, Disbanding came out last year, looked pretty good. I like Tulane. Michigan State, so much better than people think. People are sleeping on Michigan State. They're actually pretty solid, man. Their linebacker room, I gave it a 9. It's hard to explain how good their linebacker room is. So I'm going to do my best to explain this. Their leading tackler last year, one of their leading tacklers was Cal Haladay. And they're telling me Cal Haladay is no longer the starter. What? You got in Wayne Matthews, who came over from Old Dominion, second leading tackler at Old Dominion. And then you have Jordan Turner, who was a multi-year starter at Wisconsin and kind of lost his starting job only because the new coaching staff wanted to go with more athletic linebackers instead of these hard-nosed, in-the-box linebackers. This team is good, y'all. Michigan State defense, pretty solid linebacker room. Unproven corners. Not quite there in the safeties. But the linebackers just look, they're everywhere. They make every play. And I'm cool with that. I like linebackers making every play. So shout out to Michigan State. Right ahead of them is Wyoming. Wyoming's defensive tackles, it's funny. Wyoming, I talk about it all the time. There are two different teams in Wyoming. There's the one they play when they're on the road, and then the one they are when they're at home. At home, they're monsters. It might be the elevation, the wind, something. But these two dudes right here, Ben Florentine and Bertagnoli, 96, 94, dude. Grown-ass men can play anywhere, dude. I promise you. Those Wyoming defensive tackles are grown. Linebackers are solid. And corners took a hit. Remember, Cam Stone left to Hawaii. He should probably be here helping them out. But the safeties are pretty legit. I really like that defensive line by them. I really do. Defensive tackles. Wyoming looks good. They don't look like they have a whole lot of holes, just the corners. Texas Tech, very senior Latin last year, were supposed to be great, and then they just fell through and didn't get it done. So now here they are. Oh, this is Jacob Rodriguez coming back from injury. I believed. I just said the last guy was injuries. It was Jacob. Ben Roberts became the starter last year as a redshirt freshman. I called him like a slower, bulkier Urlacher, but I didn't. I just said that because he was kickoff returner in high school or something. Like that's not real. Quincy Ledet can play. I just don't think he's a real natural nose tackle, but he's here. He's doing it. DeBraylon Carroll just transferred in from Rice. Pretty solid player. Pretty solid player on tape. I ain't mad at him. The team looks good. Talent everywhere. Shout out to Lux. There's players that can play here. It's just they didn't get it done last year, and I don't know how I can give any of these guys a 7. So 6s across the board for the most part. And what's crazy is I did the same thing for Louisiana, and for Texas Tech, it feels like an underwhelming defense. And on the flip side, for Louisiana, it feels like this is what's going to carry them, the Raging Cajun. Their defense, I gave them 6s all across. I went to corners at 5, but they just look like they got a wealth of experience on the defensive side of the ball. Like, these guys all look really good. They might even be one more year away from being great. But they lost so much on offense, I don't know how I feel about it. But defensively, Louisiana's defense is going to be solid. Like, this is a very good group of 5 defense. Very good. They're right behind Miami of Ohio, which is crazy. Miami of Ohio, they're going to be held together in the trenches. Everybody's telling me, Rico, look out for Gabbert. Look out for the wide receivers. Okay, bro. Look out for that offensive line. It's one of the best in the group of 5. I gave it a 7, by the way. And then defensively, these linebackers. Matt Salopek and Ty Wise. These guys could have got paid. Could have went somewhere else. They're so good. They could have got paid, and they chose not to. But everybody else is just okay. Nobody else is great. They're just okay. But those two dudes lead the show. They lost Woolard. He went to Oklahoma. They lost a star pass rusher, if you will. So I don't know how I feel about this team dominating or anything, but they look very good. I like them. One of the better defenses in the MAC, obviously. I think they're the second or third best. Yeah, I got Toledo number 1, and then obviously Northern Illinois. But, yeah, third best defense in the MAC is not bad. I'm sure I'll get attacked by their fans. Here's Arkansas. Everybody's like, well, what the fuck? You got a SEC team down here? Yep. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Arkansas just lost Their leading tackler, Jaheim Thomas, he went to Wisconsin. When I assess Arkansas, they have some players. Landon Jackson can play. Defensive linemen are there. They're not bad. I like Brad Spence a lot. He's still young, but I like Brad Spence a lot. Larry Worth coming over from Jacksonville State. Shout out to Steven Dix, another linebacker, was good at Florida State, got injured, revived his career at Marshall last year. It's a good player. Xavier Musori, former 5-star, coming over. Like, okay. But the reality is some of these guys just need to come through and get it done, and they don't get it done. I don't believe in their corners, and I don't feel like anybody else is a real big superstar. But I like Brad Spence. I'll be honest. I like his tape a lot. I think in like 2 years he'll be one of those amazing Arkansas-type linebackers, for sure. Fresno State's next on the list. Sorry, I'll go to the chat here in a little bit. Trying to just buzz through the list as fast as I can. I like Fresno State's defense. I like their offense even more. But their defense is solid, especially their front seven. So front seven's for real. You got Lightfoot, Foreman, and Namora, all from the same high school. Shout out to Corona Centennial. Finally showing up. Corey Foreman from USC, former 5-star. Namora from USC, same thing. Devo Bridges can really get after the quarterback. Kind of stout in the front seven, y'all. I understand the backsides of question marks here and there, but Fresno State looks like they're winning the Mountain West. I'm going to put it out there. Arizona State, I'm sure if you ask them, they're looking great in camp. Clayton Smith, former Oklahoma kid, out here doing his thing. Dorba, former Texas kid. The pass rush is there. If you look at Arizona State, the ratings I gave them is for pass rush and linebackers at 7s. I like their linebackers a lot. I could probably go to 8 with their linebackers. Kashawn Elliott, the leading tackler and star at New Mexico State last year, really believed in him. Zyrus Fezu, the number 1 linebacker at San Diego State last year. That's saying something because there was 2 of them that were Power 4 caliber that transferred out. So I really like their linebacker room. Crooks is here. Jordan Crooks coming over from Arkansas. When I started off last year and I gave my assessment in January, earlier this year, I said Crook wasn't going to be very good. Went back, watched the tape, watched spring ball, started paying attention. Crook's good. Crook's not bad. He might see the field. He might get out there and do his damn thing. So that's an upgrade there. So I like this linebacker room a lot and the pass rush. That could carry you pretty far. You can like little dudes like this. Cole Martin, nickel corner coming over from Oregon. You can like him if you want. It's not bad. They got other issues. They're still learning. Coach is still learning, things like that. Where are we at? We're on Cal. Man, we're barely halfway. I got to go. I don't want to drag this out for hours. Looking at Cal's defense, I actually was underwhelmed with the linebacker room. I give it a 7. I understand they got production. I don't remember why I gave it a 7. Maybe I didn't mind Buchanan. I didn't think very highly of Buchanan initially, though, but maybe I like the other guys a lot. That might be it. That's weird. Their corners are good. Hearns the third. Noel Williams. Yep. Cal's just going to score a lot of points. Cal's another North Texas team. If you don't know what they're about, Cal is North Texas, but in the Power 4. Duke lost a lot of players to the transfer portal. I'll go a little faster here. So they drop immensely. I still like their linebackers. UCLA, solid defensive tackles. Losing your defense coordinator hurts. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to do at defensive end, linebacker, or safeties. I don't like UCLA as a whole. They got work to do. Illinois, could be wrong. Could be wrong about Illinois. Corners look really good. I see Zero Canada, second string. It's a kid who came in through the JUCO ranks, and he's really good. And he's second string. So that tells me the starters are good. So I should probably believe in their corners a little more. But Illinois linebackers are going to lead that team. Probably sleeping on them. Northern Illinois. I'm not sleeping on Northern Illinois. I think Northern Illinois is one of the better teams in the MAC. I have them winning the MAC, and that's pissing off a lot of people. But I like Northern Illinois a lot. A lot of it has to do with their defensive scheme and the way they coach defense. Texas State, studs everywhere. Texas State has a great pass rush. Shout out to, I think it's Ben Hall. A little undersized white dude transferred in, and he balled out of control last year. Like that guy a lot. I like their safeties. Washington. You think Washington, everybody left. They didn't. They still have decent corners who just transferred in, but their leading tacklers at linebacker, they still have one of those guys around. They still have a pretty good team. Washington's okay. They're not great, but it's there. Rice. Nobody believes in Rice. I do. I have them in my top 10 of the group of 25. Or, I'm sorry, the group of 5. I like Rice top to bottom. That defense was special. And you guys are lucky 2 of them hit the transfer portal. One of their starting corners hit the portal. He went to... Where'd he go? Don't remember. It doesn't matter. Like Rice. South Florida, good team, good defense. Pretty solid all the way around, and I didn't see that when I was watching the tape initially. I didn't see that coming. Toledo, still got beast defensive tackles. Still know what they're doing in the safety room. Still very good team. And Candle's out there to coach. Their offense is not going to be that great. We don't like Toledo. But their defense still looks pretty stout. Colorado, I have a lot of respect for their corners. I like their secondary in the safety room. I gave it a 7. Pass rush looks very improved. Very improved, gave it a 7. Linebacker room's respectable for most Power 4 schools. Hate their defensive tackles. I just feel like they don't have enough size. They don't have enough production. They don't have what it takes to be up front. And I shouldn't say hate. They're just not as comparable to any of these other defensive tackles I've seen. Just not. Wake Forest, strongest front 7 of a boring team you'll ever see. Like, you guys want to know why Wake Forest is any good in the ACC or why they're competitive in games? It's their front 7. It's really good. Their defensive tackles, defensive ends, and linebackers are all really good. They're missing those top-end athletes. They're missing a good quarterback. They're missing a good wide receiver, whatever. But Wake Forest, front 7 on defense, you see it, 7, 8, 7. It's the highest you'll see of anybody down here. They're the number 1 front 7 of any team we've looked at so far. Telling you. Maryland, I like their linebacker room just a little bit, but losing Barham to Michigan hurts a lot, and I like their safeties. But Maryland looks like they're going to struggle. They really do. Minnesota, I'm excited about their offense. I hope they put up a ton of points. Defense, good defensive tackles, good corners. And that's crazy because last year they were trying to get anybody to transfer in the secondary, and they were trying to accept anyone. And then they figured it out, and this year they're not doing that nonsense. Last year they signed corners into I think into August. Like, they were just trying to get anybody to help that secondary. That's what they saying, Bride and all them dudes. And now they got Ethan Robinson, who I think is a hidden gem. Pretty sure I made a video on him on YouTube. And Justin Wally, who turned out to be the truth. Turned out to be the guy they needed. So that's pretty cool. But I think they've really solidified this defense. If you look, they didn't go grab a bunch of transfers. They didn't try to address too many issues on the defensive side of the ball. They tried to bring in people to help everywhere else. But the defensive side of the ball, they're pretty content with their 2 deep. That's saying something. I pay attention to trends like that. Okay? So they weren't out there fishing like they were last year. Oh, my God, last year. They signed Bride so late in the process. I was like, Tyler Bride, when did he go? Georgia Southern to Minnesota, what is this? And every corner you saw hit the transfer portal, it would say, has an offer from. And it was always Minnesota. There's Purdue. I think they're improving. I like Purdue. Obviously, Purdue has the 3rd best safety in America. The 3rd best safety in America is Dylan Thieneman. I told you he was going to be great last year. He was one of my hidden gems for Purdue. He was the hidden gem on Purdue, I should say. And gave him a shout out. Made a video on him on TikTok. His brothers reached out. Everybody said thanks. But both of his brothers used to be team captains at Purdue, by the way. So it's a family lineage. It's a legacy thing. And then he played out of his mind. He's the 3rd best safety in America. 3rd best safety in America, Dylan Thieneman. Obviously, I have Malachi Starks, number 1, then Caleb Downs, number 2, and then it's this kid. In America, I think he's amazing. But I still gave them an 8 because the other safeties are unproven and not very good. So, shout out to Purdue. JMU, going to win at least 9 games. Believe in JMU's defense. They got players everywhere. They hit the transfer portal, brought in some guys from Holy Cross. Don't care. Ballers. I love the tape. TCU, sneaky good. Offense at TCU is sneaky good. Defense, brought in Caleb Arms. They had a good linebacker already. They brought in another linebacker from Cal. They looked the part at linebacker. I like TCU a lot. You see the defense here at 45. UNLV. Lost some players in the transfer portal. I still like UNLV. I love their linebackers and their corner play. They brought in some absolute studs in the secondary. Obviously, former 5-star Tony Grimes, former all-conference guy in the ACC, went to A&M last year, then transfers in. Jalen Catalone, as long as he's healthy, former all-conference starting safety at Arkansas. So when you bring in these Power 4 starters, as long as they're healthy, you're there. I evaluate the entire position group, but the starters get a lot more value when I give these ratings. UNLV's got really good starters right now. Hopefully nobody gets injured. LSU, best linebacker room in America. I'm underwhelmed by the rest of that defense, but the best linebacker room in America. Yep, that's why I give it 11, and I would never do that. It just looks so good. I couldn't just give it a 10. Gave it an 11. Really like it. West Virginia, serviceable defense. Obviously ranked 42nd in the country. You can't be mad, but West Virginia fans want to be top 25. And the way they're going to get there is their offense is amazing, going to keep the opposition off the field. But what they needed to do was hold on to players like Tommy Wadirje, who hit the transfer portal, went to Florida State, and is now third string at Florida State. He was going to be in your starting lineup or in your rotation, and you couldn't hold on to him. But I will say this, West Virginia knocked it out the park when it comes to the transfer portal. West Virginia addressed their needs and improved the talent of their defense tenfold. And a lot of this has to do with, and I'm going to pull them up here, addressing every level of the defense. Meaning they got a stud at defensive tackle. Well, he's not here. Named West. West isn't in here right now. CJ West is an amazing guy. They don't have him here. Josiah Trotter coming back from injury. This is Jeremiah Trotter's son, right? He's going to be a beast. I hope he plays great. I believe in him. But Aiden Garnes and this kid, Kokora Tarnu, I don't know how they have him second string. I don't care. Kokora Tarnu is on tape for me is an NFL caliber athlete. I think NFL scouts are going to fall in love with that kid. I'm getting this right. He's second string right here. I don't care. I'm getting this right. He's NFL. He's that good. He started playing football late. He's from Africa. He went the JUCO route. Just played at Jacksonville State last year. Turn on the tape. That's that. Turn on the tape. Him and Aiden Garnes are real. I watch tape. Them dudes rock. West Virginia is going to be good. So West Virginia as a team is going to be good. But, yeah, they're ranked behind Auburn. There's Auburn at 41. I'm sure Auburn fans are mad they're at 41. They think they have a top 10 defense, whatever they're doing. I looked at the team. It looks good. They got sevens all the way across. It's not bad. Syracuse in front of them. I like Syracuse in certain position groups, man. Their linebackers, that Marlowe, woo-hoo, he's bad, bro. He's bad. Safeties, bad as hell. They're good, guys. The concern I have is at corner, they have a freshman, a true freshman slated to start at corner over Devin Grant, which is crazy, but more power to him. Kansas. Love Kansas corners. Love Kansas as a team. Rico, why isn't Kansas in your top 25? Their offensive line sucks. But I like Kansas a lot. Offense got star players everywhere. Receiver room, quarterback, running back. Defense, no pass rush. Linebackers, okay. I love their shutdown corners. Love them. Kansas got the best corners I've seen in a minute, bro. You don't see no 10s in corners. You do at Kansas. Florida, talented. They're here. Florida's got a nice secondary, nice corners. I think they have the potential to be pretty good, or at least improved. There's Indiana. Talk about improved. Indiana's defensive front is not to be played with. Defensive tackles are amazing. Linebackers are underrated. I watch tape on Indiana, and I really like what I see. A little undersized at corner because D'Angelo Pons is there. I know he's only like 5'9". Still, they're ballers, man. Indiana, absolute ballers. I got them in here at 37 on defense, and people aren't gonna even respect it. Stanford, put them at 36. That's nuts for some people, but I watched the tape. I really like Stanford's linebackers, and I think their whole front set, everybody's solid. There's no weak points anywhere except for the safeties. A little unproven, a little slow, but the rest of it's nice. NC State still got a stout front seven, or at least front four. Still got a stout defensive line. The rest needs some work because of the turnover from NFL draft picks or whatever. Virginia, there is no better safeties than Virginia. Virginia's got a kid named Sanker. I think he's one of the top 5 safeties in America. He's probably my 4th or 5th best safety. Virginia has a great safety room, and it turns out I didn't realize it. After I watched the tape, I'm like, yo, this pass rush is real. Pass rush with good safeties sounds like turnovers to me. Hopefully Virginia can get it done, but I really like Virginia's safeties. Their corners leave a lot to be desired. UCF's got a sneaky good defensive lineman. I want to show you UCF has a really good defensive line, and you wouldn't expect that from UCF. Nobody's talking like that about they're under Central Florida. Excuse me. So no one really talks about it like this, but see this number 2 here? Lee Hunter. Lee Hunter's everywhere, guys. Lee Hunter is going to get, like most defensive tackles get like 20 tackles. Lee Hunter's going to get 50. Lee Hunter is everywhere. He doesn't quit on any plays. One of the top dudes out there. I gave Lee Hunter a 9. I don't know if NFL scouts are on him like that. I don't know if all conference teams or all American teams are on him like that. I'm on him like that. I think Lee Hunter is a 9. Number 2, Central Florida defensive tackle, gave him a 9. I think he's one of the best in America. And their pass rush with Nigel Kelly coming in from Miami and McCallie Lawrence gave it a 9. UCF's got a problem up front, and people are going to feel it. Ethan Barr showing up late at the middle linebacker spot. This is a 2-time team captain at Vandy, went to Washington. Obviously, Washington had the coaching changes, and then he ends up over here. Another beast. You just got to believe in this team. The only thing I have a problem with is their secondary when I see a guy like Sheldon Arnold starting. Sheldon Arnold's an FCS transfer from ETSU. Wasn't the best safety on the team. Shout out to Chris Hope. But here he is, and he started. No shade. I'm just letting you know. There's levels to this. So I don't really believe in UCF's corners and safeties all that much. Nebraska. They tell me Nebraska's going to be great. I'll believe them when I see it. Defense looks pretty solid, though. Defensive tackles look beast, and the secondary is pretty good. USC. Tell me it's going to be improved. Brought in the leading tacklers from Oklahoma State or from Oregon State. Brought in some studs from UCLA. Brought in UCLA's defensive coordinator. USC has talented players, but they're right there at 31, and they shouldn't complain. Right ahead of them is Missouri. Missouri's got a solid defensive front. I love their safeties. I love Dalen Cannell. Beast. Shout out to Missouri. Kansas State never has a bad defense. Good defensive tackles. Bad corner play, like slow corners. Slow corners, just lost Will Lee in the transfer portal. And look, when you lose Will Lee and he goes to Texas A&M and he's one of your best corners and he's at A&M right now and he's not slated to start. What's that say about the corners on your team compared to A&M? That's how it can be done, bro. Let's just do simple college football math. You can't start here, but you used to start over here. So that means everybody over here at A&M is better than anybody over here. That's college football math. You're starting at K-State. You transfer from K-State. You're a superstar at K-State. You transfer. You can't start. Now you're at a real team. And that means every single corner at A&M is better than anyone at K-State. And that means they're probably better than anyone in the Big 12. College football math. I'm going to get to Miami, but I'm going to check the chat real quick. Shout out to you guys. See what we got. Let's go to chat. Boom. Sorry about that, y'all. We will be here. Let me try to find it. If any of those people were real FSU fans, they know Mike Norvell just said the receivers finally had a good day this late in camp. They've been a problem all offseason. Defense is good, though. Yeah, shout out to TD Florida, too. We know the wide receiver room's bad. Malik Benson's in the starting lineup, and he couldn't start at Alabama. And Alabama, I mean, they had 4 decent wide receivers, but it wasn't like he's any good. We know the rest of them aren't any good. You lose draft picks. You're not replacing them with more draft picks. So we just know that. What position do you have as a 3 for Troy? Evan Kramer, Troy. The 3 is corners. The 3 is corners. I knew Evan Kramer was going to have a problem with my rankings, bro. Michigan, Peridot. Likes Michigan's defense. Shout out to you. Rico, see, you're very high on Iowa State. Tough back end of the schedule, including some road games that will really test them. Steve, yeah, so I want to say this with full, clarity and transparency. I didn't think very highly of Iowa State last year. I thought they were going to be terrible. They were coming off of a 1-win conference performance, 4 wins on the season, 1 win. And then I just watched them week in and week out. And I had a gentleman reach out to me, Jeremiah's father. So Jeremiah Cooper, his father, reached out to me on Twitter. And he was like, hey, what do you think of my son? I'm like, oh, who's your son? Well, he's a starting safety over here. So I start paying attention. And I sit down and I really look into Iowa State. Holy shit, they're amazing. Holy smokes, they're great. Holy smokes, Batman, they're great. Oh my God, they're all returning. Everybody's returning. The people who couldn't start at Iowa State and hit the transfer portal are starting at other schools. Listen to what I'm saying. There are safeties, defensive backs, who couldn't start at Iowa State, hit the transfer portal, and are starting everywhere else. There are starting running backs who couldn't start at Iowa State, and they're starting at other schools. Iowa State is feeding other schools. They're amazing. And I just realized it. And I'm just like, wait, they're good. I know they got a tough back-end schedule. I'm just evaluating talent. I'm not trying to predict all their wins right now. Not in this video. Not in these rankings. But I was dumbfounded. Iowa State's really good. Yep, it was an epiphany. Been studying it all offseason. I'm just like, yo, that's real. Rico, the NFL puts players' PFF grades everywhere. Are these grades inaccurate? No, I don't think these grades are inaccurate. I think these grades, PFF grades, so the NFL doesn't do that. The NFL doesn't do it. PFF does it. The recruiting websites do it. People who are in accordance with PFF, people who want to validate PFF, or if you paid PFF to provide you with scouting information. Let me explain. NFL teams have scouting departments. They do not evaluate every single player. They actually outsource it. NFL teams will hire a third party to do the evaluation of players at different echelons. So NAIA schools or Division III schools, Division II schools, they will hire another company to do that recruiting for them and then give them back the results and the paperwork. And then they'll sift through it. But what you'll see is most of the time NFL scouting departments are regional. That's why you see undrafted free agents coming from local teams. Cowboys signing players from TCU or Arlington or some shit like that. You'll see teams up in the Northeast and they'll be signing teams in that area. Everybody just kind of grabs guys regionally for camp bodies, if you will, because you got to get to your 90. So you just grab local guys. And that's what people don't understand is like when you have scouts, they're not looking at all the players. So what they're using is third-party information to help them assess the players. And one of those third-party information things is PFF. I don't like PFF. I don't understand how it got its validity. Let me explain. There is a rating right now at ESPN, and it's called FPI, Football Power Index. And they'll put out the FPI ratings every offseason. There'll be charts. FPI, like RPI, will be valued and referenced and justify why somebody's ranked a certain way, why they rank players the way they do, and why they have preseason polls the way they do. All of this is derived from FPI. But have you ever looked into the origin of FPI? Why does it exist? Who gave it its validity? They put ESPN in front of it, so now it's ESPN FPI. But it's just a guy like me who created some metrics, some formula. And they co-signed it, and they bought off on it, and they made it public mainstream. So now you have PFF, and these guys will tell you PFF scores. And they'll tell you all these PFF scores. But I can tell you right now, if you want to go look at the nation's top PFF scores of any position group, it's going to be of a player at the FCS level or the group of 5 level. Hey, you go to Twitter right now. Top PFF scores in the Big 12 next year. And when you look, it'll be a transfer coming from another conference. That's because they're playing lesser competition. So you look better against weaker competition. You want to have high PFF scores? Play nobody. Be a partial starter and play in the group of 5 games or play in the FCS games. You're in the SEC. You're on a super team and you rush for 250 yards against Chattanooga. Now your PFF score is off the charts because you're Alabama and you just beat the hell out of Chattanooga. That doesn't mean anything to me. So when you see the allocation of PFF scores, and it's, well, they played this great against who? I'm serious. Go to Twitter, look up PFF College. I follow them. Not for the information. For the audacity. Every time they post a chart, I correct it because I always see errors in it. And people who follow me on Twitter, they know. I follow them just so they can post something and let's say this is the top 10 PFF grades of X, Y. And who's the top PFF score in the Big 12 in the secondary? I can tell you. It's Hodge. Hodge at Colorado. You know why? Not because he's great. Because he was at Liberty and played against all the Conference USA kids. Your score is going to look great against these scrubs. That's the reality. Go look at the top scores of PFF scores. It's people from lower conferences. It's people playing against no opposition. And they'll try to convince you it's the top PFF score. And if you look at the top PFF score from the SEC, whoever it is, go check box scores. Don't even watch the tape. Go check box scores. And you'll be like, oh my God, he got all those yards against New Mexico. They're counting his stats against UAB and Florida A&M. And they're trying to tell me this guy's elite. I'm just keeping it real. I know this 100%. I keep track of this shit. I put no value in PFF scores. 0. You can do it to justify your draft pick. These scouting departments in the NFL are lazy. They don't want to do their due diligence. James Pierce Jr. is number 1 on everybody's mock draft board, and it doesn't matter how he plays this year. He's already been identified as the number 1 player in college football, and we don't even know if he's going to play well this year. He could go out and be terrible, and it won't matter because you already said he's the best player in America. You've already predetermined who the best players are before we ever get on the field. No matter how they play, they'll still be drafted. They'll still be right where you think they are because you made up your mind 2 years ago. You made your list 2 years ago. Trust. I study this shit, bro. Them dudes are whack. Who is the big white troll safety who will own Shedeur Sanders, that 6'4 safety? The best player in the FCS, the leader of the North Dakota State defense. I have already made many videos on him. You can go watch them. We're not going to turn this whole conversation into a debate about Colorado and how much they're going to play and beat North Dakota State. That's not what this episode's about. Matter of fact, I don't even talk about Colorado during episodes, podcasts, unless it's that conference's day. This drives the Colorado fans crazy because they come in here and want to talk out of turn about their team. And I don't give a shit about their team. I'm talking about 134 different teams. If you haven't noticed. Rico, talk about Colorado and get you clicks. That's why you talk about it. Bro, I don't do anything for clicks. I do it for accuracy. That's how I'm relevant. Why do people pay you? Because I don't miss. Get it right. Put all your money on Venezuela, Latin America, and Little League World Series. Free tip. Shout out to Steve. I'm not watching the Little League World Series, but I'm sure it'll be amazing. Steve, thank you so much for supporting the channel. Thank you for the super chat and the super tip here. Thank you for supporting the channel. You guys make my life possible. I appreciate the tip. Rico is right about PFF scores. Yes, I am. I'm going to get back to the chart here. We're going to buzz through it as fast as we can. Where was I? I think the last team I talked about was Miami. I didn't even get to Miami. And let me say something about Miami's defense. I might be shortchanging Miami's defense. I'm going to pull them up right now. And I want to make it clear why I feel like I might be shortchanging them. So when you look at Miami, the reason I might be shortchanging them is they might have the best pass rush in the ACC. They might. Ruben Bain Jr., as a true freshman, showed everybody that he is elite. Elite. And there's no way you can handle that man for the next 2 years. He's just going to be going through people. So he's going to have an amazing season. I believe in him completely. That is a great pass rush at Miami, and I only gave him a 9. And Taylor Barron's here, who had 6 sacks. Now, once again, 6.5 sacks. Go study the tape. He only had 2 sacks in the SEC. All the other sacks were in the preseason against substandard teams, and that's what I'm talking about. Tyler Barron is a player with a really high PFF score. But when you go watch him on tape, he's getting stalemated and stalled out throughout the entire SEC, but he got 4 sacks in the preseason. So everybody goes, he's 6 sacks in the SEC. No, he literally got 2 sacks in the SEC. 2. So I don't really believe in him like that. But he's here. Elijah Austin, stud as well. All in all, very good. Linebackers are elite. I only gave them an 8, but they're elite linebackers. I have concern about the corners and the safeties. Obviously, Isaiah Taylor coming in from the transfer portal, coming over from Arizona, former starter, but kind of losing his starting job. And it's one of these things, but they were good at safety last year. Obviously, they were amazing. And Devontae Brown couldn't start here, so he left. If you don't know who Devontae Brown is, I'm going to talk about him when I get to Florida State. He couldn't start at Miami, so he left. This is a starter of 31 games at UCF, transferred to Miami, couldn't start here. Now he's starting at Florida State. And that's why I'm saying, when people attack me and say, why do you have Miami better than Florida State? Miami's entire offense is better. And there are people at Miami or people at Florida State that are starting that could not start at Miami. Couldn't. And that's a fact. It's not an opinion. It's a fact because it happened last year. So it's just one of those things. And he claimed to play, Devontae Brown came to play with Damari Brown, his little brother. And then he got there and he realized, oh my God, I'm not in the starting lineup. There's levels to this shit. Reality of life. Shout out to Florida State, though. You're now starting Miami's leftovers. And you're trying to tell me you're better than them. That's crazy. Next defense is Tennessee. I got them at 27, and I know people are mad about it. I really don't care how you feel about it. And I keep saying throughout this whole show, and I hate those transitional phrases, but we'll keep it clear. Peli needs to stay healthy at linebacker. James Pierce Jr. is great. Dominic Bailey's great, and they have great defensive tackles. They're studs up front. Big guys. Very good up front. You see the front 4 up here? Tennessee's front 4 is a 9 and a 10. You get to linebacker, I'm worried about durability. The best ability is availability. Durability, I'm concerned. And then the corners are not proven to me. And I say not proven. Look, Jermon McCoy eventually became the starting corner at Oregon State last year. If you're starting a true freshman or a sophomore, and you're trying to tell me you have the best defense in the SEC and all this shit, bro, that guy should not be starting for you. He should be transferring over in here and being depth. And you should be starting McMurray. But that's just the way it goes. And you lost Burrell, who used to start for you, and he's now at Georgia Tech. So I just feel like you lost some depth. But at the end of the day, it just feels like they're elite up front, and then it kind of fades away to not so elite. And at Tennessee, that's a problem when you're looking at the secondary and you're trying to look at the receiving cores you're trying to stop. Now, I don't like the way you match up with Kentucky. I know it's a rivalry, and I know they got beef and all this. I don't like the way you match up with Kentucky. Ain't none of these dudes covering Barry and Brown. What are you talking about? That's how I feel. Next is Louisville. Louisville has an amazing pass rush as well. I think Louisville's defense is going to lead them this year, and that's not a good thing. Everybody's telling me they're better this year than they were last year. I don't agree at all. Not even a little bit. I think their wide receiver room is fake. It's not nearly as good as last year's. Jamari Thrash was a proven commodity. Amazing. Believed in Jamari Thrash. He's gone. Colin Lacey just broke a collarbone. Tyler Shuck, is he any better than what you had last year? I don't necessarily know. But when we get to defense, looks pretty good. You're not a defensive-laden team. You're not a defensive coaching staff. Defense looks pretty good. Miles Jernigan and Ashton Gillette, best pass rushers, edge rushers you're going to find anywhere. I gave them a straight 10. Watching the tape, these guys are the bee's knees. Bee's knees. I don't even know what that means, but they are the bee's knees. Safeties are really good too. MJ Griffin coming back from injury, I believe, if I remember correctly. Stud. It's just a group of free agents, if you will. I don't know how well that's going to go. Next defense is South Carolina. South Cackalack. I believe South Carolina is so good that they make their offense look bad at practice. Listen to what I'm saying. When you hear reports, or you read reports, or you watch South Carolina, all they ever say is their offense is struggling at practice because of the offensive line. Bad offensive line, they're struggling. I'm going, bro, they're going up against monsters at practice. Every day, the defensive line is getting the best of them. Every day. Do you know how great this defensive line is at South Carolina? It is elite. Defensive tackles, top notch. Gave him a 10. 10. Pass rush needs some work. Bro, if Jules is your third string defensive tackle, go watch tape at Pitt and watch DeAndre Jules at Pitt. He just transferred in. And never in a million years would I have thought he'll be third string, second string. That's how great they are at defensive tackle at South Carolina. Monsters up front. Monsters in the midway. Linebackers look very serviceable. Corners, question mark. Safeties, NFL, best in the country. Safeties, that number 7. Nick Emanwari. Number 7, bro. Number 7. Watch the tape. South Carolina is going to do something special. Now, if they can figure it out, if they can figure out the offensive side of the ball, if Lenoris Sellers with them goggles can do it, then I believe in him. I believe in the goggles. Shout out to Eric Dickerson. I believe in the goggles. South Carolina, 25th best defense in America. Who's 24? Rutgers. Now, yes, Rutgers is going to be led by their defense. Rutgers has the potential to win 9 or more games because they don't play Penn State, Michigan, or Ohio State. But I'm so clear about this. Just because they might have more wins than other teams doesn't mean they're better than those teams. It just means they have an easier schedule. Rutgers has a terrible offense. I don't believe in Rutgers' offense. I hope they figure it out. Shout out to Monungai. Shout out to their wide receivers. Ethan Kaliak-Manis and Kirk Soraka coming over as the offense coordinator. I got it. Trying to find answers. But where they have answers is on defense. Rutgers' defense is tough. Tough, bro. Torrey is tough. Yeah, man, you just turn on the tape and just see monsters. And just raw-ass dudes, bro. No, pause. No Diddy. Whatever the kids say. These dudes right here ain't putting the fries in the bag anywhere. These guys are doing it, man. That's so corny. That's so corny, bro. You work 5 guys? Shout out to Rutgers. Wisconsin defense is next. I understand Some of you guys don't believe in Wisconsin. I know Luke Fickell. I know what he's building. And I know these players when I watch the tape, bro. Players are amazing. Studs. Shout out to Wisconsin. Defensive tackles look a little light. Not quite as stout as some of the others, so I gave them a 6. Not quite where they need to be. They even look like they don't run enough. You know, it's a 3-man front for them. So it's just something different. But linebacker room at Wisconsin is great. Jaheim Thomas should be a starter. Jaheim Thomas, Jake Chaney, and Allegro are the guys. Obviously, Pius came into the transfer portal. Everybody's talking about Curtis Tackett. Tackett Curtis is not a guy, bro. He's not a starter. He's not the guy I'm even talking about. He's not even who I'm excited about. I'm excited about Jaheim Thomas rejoining his coaching staff after leaving. He led Arkansas in tackles last year. Before that, he was a 4-star, 6'4", 250, who decided to stay home and play for Cincinnati, man. I respect this kid completely. I've been pulling for him all day. I think he's an NFL linebacker. Jaheim Thomas. And I'm excited to see what Pius can do. Then you got their safety. Let me just say this. You got their secondary. Dude, Ricardo Hallman had 7 interceptions last year. And people are going to try to tell me there's a better secondary somewhere else. Hunter Waller is, well, let's go the 5th best safety in America. Because I already told you who the top 3, 4, 5, 5th best safety in America. Subjectively, arguably. Dude's a beast, man. This team is real. This team is real. Offensive line's legit. If Van Dyke can get the ball to these receivers. And they got running backs not even on this list that are just so good. They got running backs not even on this list that are... Dylan Jones is a freshman coming in. Guys, he spells his name weird. D-I-L-I-N. Dylan Jones. You don't want to mess with him. And they got 3 running backs in this recruiting class. You don't want to mess with these guys. But all in all, the defense, I really believe in the linebackers in the secondary at Wisconsin. They do need a better front 7. Shout out to them. Next team is SMU. People think I'm crazy for thinking SMU is this good. I just know what I know. Like, I'll use a PFF score. You could look this up. I don't know, but you could look this up. I would imagine the best PFF score of anybody in the ACC is going to be this guy right here, Isaiah Nikwobi. Go look up PFF scores. Somebody fact check me. I watch tape. I know how good this Isaiah guy is. Number 12. Somebody go check a PFF. I don't know PFF score. I don't keep track of that shit. I'm just telling you. Look at that dude. Ahmed Walker, transfer coming in from Liberty 2 years ago, complete stud. Kobe Wilson, transfer coming in from Temple, complete stud. They're just built for this, yo. And that Elijah Roberts is must-see TV, number 5. We're going to be watching SMU a lot this year. I'm high on SMU, really high. I think SMU can win 9 games in the ACC. I'm very high on SMU. People don't understand what I see on tape. I see an NFL tight end in R.J. Maryland. He's good for 10 touchdowns. This wide receiver room is loaded. You can't mess with none of these dudes. Moochie Dixon, Roderick Daniel, you can't mess with none of these dudes. They're the fastest wide receiver room that nobody talks about. They're bad. This is a badass team, dude. SMU. Their defense is elite. They're 22nd in the country in defense, according to me. I have them right behind Alabama. Yeah, right. Yes, right. Yes, right. That's how good these players are. Elijah Roberts is that good. He could start at Alabama. Ahmed Walker could start at Alabama. Isaiah could start at Alabama. Jari Rogers could start at Alabama. A.J. Davis could start at Alabama. Right now. I assess the tape, man. You guys can be fans all you want. Be fans all you want. Point out one dude not starting at Alabama that transferred and is starting somewhere and doing some shit. Point out one. On the defense. Not starting, that's starting somewhere. No. You're not. What you're going to find is Damani Jackson in the starting lineup And everybody's going to tell you how he used to be a 5-star player and all this shit. Damani Jackson's one of the biggest flops of all time, bro. Couldn't do shit at USC. Can't even start at USC. Transfers to Alabama. Now he's a starter, and now you're trying to convince me he's good. I've known this kid 7 years. I've watched 7 years of tape on this kid. 7 years of tape on Damani Jackson. And now Alabama fans who found out who he was 3 months ago are trying to tell me I don't know the kid. I don't know what I'm talking about. I watched 7 years of that dude not do shit. I know people who could start over him. And he's in your starting lineup. Nope. Not even a little bit. Alabama. Got him 21st in the country in defense. That's where it's at. Obviously, I gave them a 9 at linebacker and a 9 at safety. I really like Keon Sabb. I like Sabb a lot at safety. I like Malachi Moore at safety. Those are very good safeties. Gave him 9s. And I would count Smith in there as well as a Husky. He's a safety. Linebacker room, solid. Solid linebackers, 9s. Can't complain about the scores. Corners suck. Alabama corners suck. Nowhere else to put it, bro. Gave him a 5. And guess what? They're not the only ones. I gave a 5 to South Carolina corners, Tennessee corners, a 5 to Iowa corners. There's no agenda here other than accuracy. Letting you know. North Carolina, they actually look pretty good. They're just missing guys up front. They're just missing the big guy because Silver transferred to where'd Silver go? Silver went to Kentucky. So they're missing a 5-star defensive tackle, and it shows. The rest of the team looks pretty solid. Hopefully Huzzy's healthy all year. Elijah Huzzy is the truth. I hope he's healthy the whole year. Utah really surprised me when I watched the tape. Remember, I'm going alphabetical. I got to them so late. Didn't realize how good Utah was up front. Utah defensive tackles, a straight 10, amazing. Pass rush is real. Linebackers are elite. Corners are solid. They don't look like they have a great secondary. The safeties, like they brought in a kid from Georgia Tech. He's just not good on film. They brought in a few kids I just don't believe in. Iowa's next at 18 on defense. Iowa's got a good front 7. Great linebackers. Don't believe in their corners at all. Safeties are pretty solid. So there you go. Clemson at 17. Love Clemson's front 7 all the way around. Some of the best linebackers in America. Shout out to them. Don't like their corners. Safeties are okay. Virginia Tech, Satsburg. I like Virginia Tech's front 7. Just brought in Peebles from Duke. He's a good for about 4 or 5 sacks. They already have Antoine Powell, who got 9.5 sacks last year, I believe. So having that, the return in production at Virginia Tech's insane. They return 18 starters, something insane. So Virginia Tech, all in all, is going to have a unit that's really well gelled, played multiple seasons together. They all know each other. Very good team. Up next on defense, Notre Dame at 15. I love Notre Dame's safeties, corners, and defensive tackles. I don't like Notre Dame's pass rush, and I think their linebackers are suspect at the Power 4 level. I do. There's Iowa State right ahead of them. There's no holes in Iowa State's game. Iowa State just has, an amazing secondary returning. I gave them a full 10. They literally have... I think they have all 4 of their secondary players returning from last year. Maybe 5 guys returning from last year's secondary. Iowa State looks a lot like Virginia Tech in returning production on defense. I love Iowa State's defense. I hope they play great. I hope they serve me right. Arizona's next at 15 or at 13. I'm sorry. Arizona, absolutely stud defense last year. People don't realize they held Washington to like 21 points. They played out of their mind down the stretch. They picked off Jackson Arnold in Oklahoma 3 times in the bowl game. They just do a lot of things well. Arizona really does. Their linebacker room is elite. Great linebacker room. Great safeties. Solid corners. They do need some depth on the defensive line. They found a great defensive rusher or edge rusher in the transfer portal from San Jose State. But Defensive tackles, I understand people are concerned about them. They found a kid in the FCS coming over from Montana State. He's huge. And then they found a multi-year starter from Syracuse, former walk-on, as the other defensive Devon. So they have two guys there at the defensive tackle spot that I believe in. It's about the depth at that point. But the other parts of their defense, their linebackers, their corners, and their safety, look at that. It's a 9-8-10, bro. It's real. Defense, Oklahoma State. You ain't messing with Oklahoma State in their defense. Linebackers are amazing at Oklahoma State. They've got a full 10. Love the corners. Love the safeties. Defensive line needs some work. Defensive tackles don't look that stout, and the edge rushers are okay. Up next is Ole Miss. Ole Miss is 11th on defense. I love Ole Miss. I love what they're trying to build, but a lot of it has to do with free agents. No real continuity. Just bringing in as many talented players as you can find, but you got to have them in your program for multiple years for me to really believe in you. That's what separates some of these teams at the top from down here, is just the way they're built. Florida State, same thing. Florida State, love the corners. Corners are NFL caliber. Love the corners at Florida State. Defensive ends, edge rushers, Peyton and all them dudes, for real. I love Florida State's, I guess, front seven, but they're not bad. You're just mad I have them at 10. If you're top 10 in America, what are you mad about? I have them at 10. There's just better teams. Reality of the situation. Oregon, trying to fix their secondary. Hopefully they fixed it. Everywhere else, they look pretty solid. 9s and 8s. Very, very consistent for Oregon. Shout out to them. Penn State, sneaky good in certain places. I really like their pass rush. You see it here. I have a lot of respect for Penn State's depth on defense. They look stout. A&M really impressed me with the pass rush. Bringing in Nick Scorton from Purdue. Very good player. And just looking at A&M and realizing, hey, they do have good corners. BJ Mays came in from UAB. I like him. Tyreek Chappelle, been there a while. Like him. I like it. Shout out to A&M. They ended up, for a while there, I was hating on A&M, and I'm like, A&M's not that good. I really don't like Connor Wegman. I don't like the way he plays. But they have a deep running back room. Okay wide receivers. But that defense just looks elite. The defense looks like it's going to keep them in games. Next is Oklahoma. Oklahoma, shout out to them. They have great Stutzman. Danny Stutzman's amazing. Follows me on Twitter. I appreciate him. Shout out to Danny Stutzman. Shout out to the Oklahoma defense. Very good. I have them 6th in the country. 5th in the country is Texas. I really like Texas and their edge rushers, safeties, corners, linebackers. Like, everybody's good. Just defensive tackles aren't quite proven, but Texas has a good defense. They're 5th in the country. Michigan at 4. Shout out to Michigan. I know there's people out there who think Michigan is not bad anywhere, and I would say they aren't. I mean, their lowest group is safety. It's not bad. I like Michigan a lot. Shout out to them. Georgia at 3. Yeah, look pretty good. Nothing negative to say. Like him all the way across. Mikael Williams, best player in the country. I like him. Edge rusher. Kentucky at 2, and a lot of people flip out because I have Kentucky at 2. Listen to me. This is how I assess talent and position groups. This is not me predicting win-loss records. This is not me predicting what the coach is going to do with these guys and how many shutouts they're going to have. None of that. This assists me in evaluating matchups. And what you need to understand is Kentucky has an advantage at every position group you see up here. They really do. Kentucky has an amazing defensive tackle room, amazing linebackers, great pass rush, incredible safeties, very, very competent corners. Now, do I understand that Kentucky's only going to win 8 games this year? Yes. It's not going to be these guys' fault. It's probably because the opposition's better, the coaches are better, the offense is better than Kentucky. But these guys are great. I've never said anything positive about Kentucky in my life. Not publicly. I sat down individually, independent of any influences, and I evaluated tape. That's what I do. Every single day, 18 hours a day, I put in the work. This is not a halftime job. This is not a part-time job. This is not a hobby. This is not something I do after hours. I do that. You can watch me on TikTok Live. I'm working in front of these screens 18 hours a day to make sure I get this right for the MVPs. Shout out to all my members. Shout out to Patreon. Shout out to YouTube. If you join the channel, become a member. If you join the Patreon, become a member. We have over 4,000 members on Patreon. How do you think that happened? You think it happened because I was missing? Because I was guessing? Because I created a fan page for one team and tried to pretend like I knew one team better than anybody in the world? No. It's because I accurately assess talent for 134 teams. And then break those 134 teams down into 2 different sides of the ball, 5 different position groups. There's a lot going on here, but there isn't a magic trick. There is no shortcut. I literally do this every single day. It's my job. It's not a hobby. It's my job. So I treat it like such. I put in the work. And when I'm telling you, I look at Kentucky, this is how I feel about Kentucky. Shout out to them. Sorry for the tangent. And then number 1 is Ohio State. Looked like a complete defense. Only thing they're missing is linebackers, but not even. They got 8s at linebackers. They're pretty solid. Number one defense in the country that I saw on tape is Ohio State. All right, I'm going to go to chat one last time, and then we're going to wrap up the show. Thanks for being here, guys. I appreciate you, each and every one of you. If anybody wrote anything, then we'll be here, but I think we're done. We're good. Nate Ritchie will be amazing for Utah this year. There you go. Shout out to Nate Ritchie. I hope he plays great. He looked pretty solid. Sorry if I missed you talking about Rico, but have you done of these for the offenses? Oh, yeah, Benejo. There is an episode on the offense. I did it a month ago. It took me a while to finish the defenses, but yeah, I did this on the offense a while ago. So you can go watch the offensive rankings. It's on YouTube. If you go to YouTube, there's playlists. You can click on playlists. You can see this Hidden Gems playlist, but there's also, I have it here, the Hidden Gems playlist, but there's also another tab on YouTube. If you go to my homepage, let me try to pull it up here. If you go to my channel, yeah, you just click on the live tab, the one you're on now, right? So you click on the live tab just like this. Instead of hitting videos or shorts, click on live. And if you go to all these lives, you can scroll down, and right here it says RicoKnows breaking down the top offenses in college football for 2024. It's right there. It's in the second row, and I did this 4 weeks ago. Yeah, about a month ago. So, and you can see other things, me reacting to the UFL football draft, me talking about college football power rankings. You can see me talking about the best coaches in America. There's like a bunch of different live episodes. This one's wide receiver cores, only talking about the wide receiver cores and how I rank them. ACC transfer portal grades. There's a bunch. There's some off the chart. I'm not even off the page. I'm not even showing you guys. So the deal with this is if you hit the live button, you will see old podcasts. That's where all the podcasts are. So transfer portal questions are in here. My predictions on things. Me talking about every single transfer portal episode. So every player in the transfer portal I've talked about, you can just come in here and, oh, I'm curious about this particular person. You can come in here and watch them and find them. And then these are all last season's podcasts where I give predictions on the games, which we will be starting tomorrow. So you'll be seeing a lot of these on the live tab. Every day, all you need to do, if you're a college football fan, is wake up every morning and go check the live tab, and you will learn about college football. You will learn about the teams you know nothing about. Thank you guys for being here. Remember, I'm RicoKnows. This is not a hobby, bro. This is not a game. This is what I do. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Thanks for hanging with me. Sorry for being so long-winded. Sorry for taking up all your time today. Enjoy your Sunday. I'm going to enjoy mine. I'm actually trying to find my my outtake music. I don't know what I want to play on the way out. Probably a nice upbeat song for Sunday. So I'll catch you guys later. Your friends don't know, but Rico knows. Peace, y'all.